Hello and welcome to Tricks of the Ashtray channel. Today is the 3rd of May 2018. In today's feature, we're featuring somebody by the name of Billy Graham. Billy Graham recently died and he was known as America's Pastors. And also we are featuring somebody who's very popular in the trap music genre, the name of Post Malone. Now I have to say something about Post Malone. This is in no way, no way trying to make any disrespectful comment towards black people. So I want people to hear me out. If you're black, I'm not making any disrespectful comment, especially if you're into music and you produce music and everything else that you do that's related to music per se. But the first time I had Post Malone, I was like, wow, this is somebody that has made music, trap music, to be something that you could listen to make it very nice. And I was wondering, how come that black people or the producers and the artists who make trap music can make this music as good as Post Malone? But even though I did say that, because Post Malone is obviously white, or as we know it to be on our own channel, he's an albino. And I tended to, not really, even though the music of Post Malone was really great, and I've never heard trap music sound so good, because I'm always thinking that when the black folks make trap music, it sounds like, a bunch of, like, let's say somebody went and got an aluminum pot and put in some, let's say, nails and was shaking it around, and that's the kind of noise I feel it makes. So for me, I don't really listen to music, trap music, that much. I used to listen to a lot of music, but nowadays I rarely do that, based on what I'm getting to find out and what I'm getting accustomed to. So I rarely listen to music, movies, and everything else. So, but speaking of trap music, when Post Malone, I heard Post Malone's music, I was like, wow, trap music actually sounds so good. How come black folk can make it sound this good? Is it some sort of, is there something going on here that we do not know about? And the music is okay, but for some reason, I couldn't, get on it. I don't know, that's the best way I can explain. I couldn't, there was just something holding me back from, always bumping to it. And I couldn't tell why. And I've always had that same feeling with certain kinds of music, because it sounded very hypnotic, to be honest. The Post Malone music sounds very hypnotic. I had that same feeling with Zayn Malik, when Zayn Malik came out with this song. I've forgotten what the title of the song was. It was very popular. Let me find out the name of the song so I can say this right. So the Zayn Malik song was Pillow Talk. And Pillow Talk, it had some lyrics in it that said, it seems like it's a paradise, is a war zone, something like that. And I couldn't quite get on it, because everywhere you went, for some reason, you would hear, Zayn Malik's Pillow Talk. And in the same case with Post Malone, everywhere you go, you kind of seem to hear Post Malone. So after a couple of, I just put it out of my mind. I said, well, that a white guy made black music very good, and the blacks couldn't do it. Like I said, I'm not meaning that in any disrespectful way. It's just my own opinion, so I don't want anybody to barrage me or have a problem with what I just said. It's just my own opinion, so spare me, okay? So when with Post Malone, a couple of days passed, months passed, and then something happened like 2 days ago. Because I'm always, me and the team in general, we're always trying to find out information and get information on what we can at least present to the public, to the people who want to be aware of the truth. So when we got on to looking at Coachella, because a lot of Coachella, Coachella is like some sort of, let's say, a music festival. They want to have it like an open air kind of music festival. And I've explained in a book that a lot of these open air festivals that you watch on TV, the award shows, are real life Masonic and also temple events. That means there's some sort of, what's the best way to put it? Some sort of open air religious events that's immersing the world and the people, the performers who are doing it, into some sort of occult practice in worship of a certain deity. We've explained that all in a book, so if you're interested in the book, please send us an email. The book is out. We only, even though we have a list to go through, still send us an email and you'll get a copy and we'll let you know the price. So speaking of that, Post Malone, when we looked at Post Malone, we looked at Coachella, right? We saw something very off about Post Malone, because we've always wondered, why is it that Post Malone has a very bad sense of fashion for somebody who's supposed to be making hip-hop music? Because the black guys who make music generally are most of them are very fashionable. And if you're looking at my screen right now, you're looking at Post Malone. So we were wondering, why does Post Malone have such a bad taste in fashion? How come he doesn't dress right? He looks like somebody who hasn't taken a shower in like maybe 10-20 days. He has these tattoos, his hair, and everything else. Well, this is the same thing that a lot of transgenders do when they're trying to move your eyes away from focusing on what you're supposed to be looking at to the bad taste in fashion. Because that's what most transgenders do. So they're trying to hide the fact, the femininity or the masculinity that they portray. So they have all these crazy ways of dressing just to move your eyes away and give you an illusion. So you keep looking at the wrong things instead of looking at the figure to see that you've been looking at a female all along, which Post Malone is. So that's what the story about Post Malone. So at this point in time, if you're interested in reading about his Vatican Code of Numbers, which is listed all over this particular page, you can pause the video at any point in time and get on your search engine and type in Post Malone, or try to or go to the Wikipedia page right here and go look up his official stats. But if you're new to the channel and you heard me say the Vatican Code of Numbers, there's actually a playlist on our channel called Vatican Code of Numbers, or you can look for the Lisa Lopes or Lisa Lopez video. I don't know how it's pronounced, but I know it's spelled Lopes on the channel, and it'll get into much detail about the Vatican Code of Numbers, and a book gives you the full details, because there are so many things we can't say on our videos, but we put it all in the book for you. So if you read through Post Malone's webpage, you will say here, when Post was 9 years old, he and his family moved to Grapevine, Texas. 9 there is a Vatican Code of Numbers, because like we always tell you on this channel, he's a stooge of the Vatican. So the next person that we're going to be looking to is Billy Graham as well. You can always pause the video at any point in time, copy out the link, or just get on your search engine and type out Billy Graham, and you can go to his Wikipedia page right here. And you also see his Vatican Code of Numbers, as we're going to scroll through just to show you some. It's littered all over, because these are all Vatican stooges created by the Vatican, used to run our reality. Like Post Malone is an invention of hip-hop to take over, because we have to understand that we live in a system of albino supremacy, or white supremacy as you guys call it. Because as we have let you guys know on this channel, there's no such color as white. White is an absence of color. The word white, when referring to people with straight hair, actually means that you're albinic. It's from the Latin word albus, which means a lack of melanin. So if you read through Billy Graham's webpage here, it says here, Graham was a spiritual advisor to U.S. presidents and provided spiritual counsel for every president from the 33rd. See that? Vatican Code of Numbers, because these are all stooges of the Vatican. It's so sad, because we didn't have this particular info on Billy Graham until Billy Graham died, and I want to thank a very special subscriber of ours for bringing this to our attention, and that person's name is Amy. And we had to take a look at it and say that Billy Graham was a little bit off, because there's something about the American presidents that a lot of people don't know. So, but when you get our book, you'll have a full understanding of what's going on in there. So if it's the first time on our channel, I'd like to welcome you. You might want to watch this video from here, but I would like that you pause the video right here and go look for the primer video. And when you're finished done watching the primer video, you can come back and continue watching this video, because if you don't watch the primer video, a lot of things that we're saying is not going to make any sense to you, and you're going to have so many unanswered questions. You're going to be wondering what we're talking about. So it's better that you pause the video right here and go look for the primer video, and let me show you how to get the primer video right now. I'm sorry if I'm going to be talking a little bit too fast. It's because this video is going to be long, so I'm going to try to go through this really quick so we can move on talking about other things. So the primer video will be the oldest video on this channel. It's called Primer. It has a playlist. It has 3 or so videos inside the playlist. We suggest that if it's your first time on our channel, that you should please watch those 3 videos. It will help you very, very much. When you get on the primer video or any other video that we have on this channel, there's a link in the description section. This link is going to take you to a document. The document is going to be called Male versus Female Visual Differences right here. We suggest that you download this document and read it for yourself and keep keep it so you can teach others on how to know the visual differences between male and female. If you lived in a perfect world, this document will show you the secondary and primary characteristics between male and female, but we do not live in a perfect world because we're being fed hormones a lot, and the hormones are in the food or water, the air we breathe every day, and this is changing the way females and males look. So let's go into this real quickly, sorry to say, so we can move on. A female always has an arch in the back. Female's back is going to be shaped like a C or an S because the pelvis of a female is tilted forward. Why is the pelvis of a female tilted forward? It's tilted forward so that the baby can stay inside the womb, and the baby can come out of that womb without having any problems during the 9 months of conception. The arch is also extra support for the weight of carrying children, so there's always a C-shaped arch in a female's back. If you draw the arch from below the shoulder blades, if you draw it from high above the shoulder blades, it's going to form an S-shaped arch in the back. So I want you to remember those two letters, C or an S. A male does not have an arch in the back. A man has a straight back because men do not get pregnant. Men will never get pregnant. If a man's back wants to arch, it's going to arch outside in the shape of a D or a P, as you can see right here. So you always remember those letters. A man's back is shaped like a P or a D and is a straight. It's also, let's show you how a female looks when she kneels down. In the document right here, you can see this female still has a deep C arch in the back because her pelvis is tilted forward, like all females do. It doesn't matter if the female is big or small, tiny, tall, whatever she is, there's always going to be an arch in a female's back regardless of her height, size or shape, color or ethnicity, and texture of hair or color of skin. So as you can see right here is a big female to her left, she has an arch in the back and the pelvis is tilted forward. A small female to her right, arch in the back, pelvis is tilted forward. Doesn't matter if the female's got muscles, there's always going to be an arch in the back because nothing can change the skeletal structure once that skeletal structure is determined at conception. So always remember that. So let's move on to the next clip. We want to show you something about the female's hips, which is the most differentiating factor between male and female. You have to understand that we base our investigation on the primary skeletal difference between male and female, which lies in the skeletal structure. Nothing can change the skeletal structure, so always go for the primary and not the secondary. Do not go off jaw lines, do not go off Adam apples, do not go off Adonis belts, long arms, long torsos, looks feminine, looks masculine, has brow bossing, has a brow ridge, a slanting forehead. All that is secondary and can be changed through some sort of plastic surgery or the other. Always stick to the skeleton. So let's move forward. So I'm playing you a short clip to know where the location of the female hip is at, because the female location of the hip is always going to be below the crotch. Nothing can change that. If your hips are above the crotch, that means you're a male and someone played around with you when you were a baby and made you into a female and you think you are. So all females have their hips below the crotch. That's how a female gets measured into clothes. That's how clothes are sewn all around the world for every female and shipped to any different country, and those clothes fit because the hips of a female are below the crotch. Nothing can change that. It doesn't matter if the female's got wider shoulders, doesn't matter if she's got a wider waist. The location of the hip is below the crotch and nothing can change that. So as you can see right here, here's a female. A regular female starts spreading from underneath her elbows because her pelvis starts getting wider, and the widest point is always going to be her hips, which is below the crotch. If you draw a line at the female waist to the female hips, it's going to always split the torso of the body into half. If you draw for a male from his waist, which is always going to be below his navel for a man, and for a man's hips, which is always going to be above the crotch, it's going to split the body into 1/4. That means the length from a man's waist to his hips is going to be 1/4 the length of the torso of the body. So always remember that. So a regular female starts spreading from underneath her elbows, and the widest point will be always below her crotch. A female has a very acute Q angle because she has a wide pubic arch. Why does a female have a wide pubic arch? A female has a wide pubic arch so that a baby can come outside of the womb, and because of that wide pubic arch, everything in the pelvis of a female is farther spread apart, and so that's why the hips are farther apart, so that out of the way, so that a baby can come out of the womb. So I played a tape for you to see where the location of the hip is as the tape goes round. As you can see right there, the widest point is below the crotch. And one thing you should note, a female always has a very acute Q angle that starts below the crotch. The Q angle is the angle between the hip and the knee, and this female is going to turn around so you can see from the back where the location of that hip is at from the back. As you can see right there, she turns around, it is below the crotch, slightly above the bum line but below the crotch. If this was a man, this location of the hip would be farther away from this bum line. If you have problems looking at somebody from the front and you can't determine if the sex of the person is male or female, try to see if you can find a picture of the person from the back, because when you see a picture of the person from the back, you can determine that that person is either male or female because of how acute the Q angle is. So let's go further, and that's it. So the Vatican landed a strike on account and is trying to shut us down because, as we've told you before, that YouTube is the Vatican and the Vatican is YouTube. The YouTube online community is the Vatican. They're both one and the same because the Vatican runs everything, as you will find out in a book if you get one. So for this particular point, I just want to show you that the Vatican will try to shut us down one way or the other in a very sneaky way, and we have all the angles from that how they could shut us down. They could just say that we have some maybe crazy, you know, let's say vulnerability on YouTube, and somebody hacked into YouTube and laid down a virus, and the virus let go of a lot of subscribers and a lot of, you know, channel owners, and a channel happened to be one of them. That's one way they could go, because recently we know that there has been some sort of hoax being set up that somebody got into YouTube, the headquarters of YouTube, and shut it down and killed a lot of people and killed herself or himself in the process. That's all the propaganda, mind-bending, trying to massage the public's mind so they can think that this thing about YouTube or whatever they're planning in the future with YouTube is normal and happened organically, so we wouldn't know that the Vatican is the brains behind it. So the strike they landed on account was for a Selena Q video that we made, in which we tried to tell the public that Selena Q wasn't the male that she, wasn't the female that she made the public to believe that she was actually a born male and transgendered female. And by the way, there's no such thing as a transgender. There's only mutilation. We just use the word transgender so you can understand what we're talking about here. So they landed a strike on account and said that the video that we had on Selena Q had nudity in it, when it did not have any nudity. They did not show us the minute mark at which the nudity was on the video because it did not exist. So at some point in time, the Vatican is going to try to shut us down. So that's why we put a lot of information that's going to help your world in our book. For those who have gotten the book, I would like you to tell us what you found, because we know that, like, we stand by our word that the book was going to be something, the next best thing after the Bible, the Geneva Bible or the King James Bible. So we've put all this information in a book. We're not trying to sell you a book. We're trying to give you information, because you have to understand that the matter, the information that we put out on our videos, it's digital, and anything digital can be made away with, because you can save it to a hard drive. The hard drive can get corrupted, and you have to understand that with everything media, that there's some sort of timing clock on those media machines, your hard drives or so, that's going to make it go bankrupt or unusable after a certain number of years. So if you think that you have a video or saved somewhere, trust us that in the next couple of years down the line, 50, 20, 30, 40 years, 60, 70, 80 years, is going to go corrupt, and those videos that you thought you had is going to be gone. So that's why we are putting all this information in the book, because you can get rid of a book that easily. All right, because once you have it in a book, it's there forever and ever in pages. All right, so that's why the Vatican is trying to send everybody online, because they can change the information at the drop of a hat, but you cannot change a book. If you try to make changes to the book, you have to print a whole new book for it, because when you made a change, it would show in the book that you changed something. That's why you can trust your Bible, because if you try to tamper with the Bible, you would have to print a whole new different Bible, and if you try to mess some sort of writing up in there, it would show that you messed up the writing. So that's why we're going the same route to put this information in a book for you. The reason why we put this information in a book is not because that we want to sell you a book. We want you to have this information always at your own disposal, everything from start to finish. We answer all of most your pertinent questions, hoaxes, and whatever that you can think of is in a book. The price of the book is expensive, not because it's of our own doing, because we do not own any printing press. We have no control over how books are printed, or the charges or the cost for the book. All what we're doing is try to get information in your hands. A lot of us have spent money throughout our lives in something or the other which did not give us any benefit. You've probably bought a lot of books that which did not give you any benefit at all. I've bought tons. If I wanted to talk about the number of books I've bought, I would say it would be in the thousands of dollars, and over maybe $20,000, $30,000, $45,000. But none of them had any truth in it. But our book, it's comprehensive, it's a summary, it's 934 pages. So if you're interested in the book, send us an email. The book is out. If you didn't get a copy right now, you're going to get a copy later, because we are trying to get as many copies as we can. So bear with us. So if you're interested in watching the Selena Q video, please look for the Bono video on this channel. We'll give you instructions on how to watch it. So let's move further. Before we move further, I'd just like to say that this is a special warning to anybody who's on our channel, that our channel is not a rumor spreading channel, and we do not appreciate people slandering anybody. If you're going to ask questions about someone's gender, you have to provide links of pictures based on the primary skeletal differences between male and female, which lies in the fact that the female skeletal structure is designed to give birth, and because the female skeletal structure is designed to give birth, a female has hips below her crotch, an arch in her back, a pelvis is tilted forward, and a wide pubic arch. If your questions about the person's gender does not contain any of that, you're going to be labeled as a slanderer and a rumor spreader, and we're going to add you to the spam list. If you want to spread rumors, send us an email. Our email is the same as the channel name at gmail.com, and for those who are interested in the book, send us an email also. Our email is the same as the channel name at gmail.com. So there's no slandering allowed on the channel. You have to provide those links of pictures, specific links of pictures, not a Google search result, not a YouTube video or any video that somebody made trying to prove the fact that this person is not the gender they claim. You have to provide specific links of pictures. If you get off your comments by saying someone's gender is based on the fact that they have long arms, long torsos, an Adam's apple, Adonis belt, brow bossing, they look womanish, look mannish, they have long ring or index fingers, you're going to get blocked. That's all we have to say. So let's move forward. So besides that, we're going to be featuring some people on transgender, as transgenders on this particular video. This particular video is dedicated to saving lives, because there's a lot of misunderstanding in our world about meat. Meat is very, very essential that everybody should eat. But recently we find out that there's a lot of, you know, vegan or vegetarian, what's the right word? Vegetarian, let's say, trend that's going on around us is trying to make a lot of people to go vegan. And a lot of people are falling for this trap that's been set up by the Vatican, that we should go vegan and that vegan is good. Vegan, you know, the motto is more like that vegan actually saves the planet, as they call it, because we don't have a planet. Planet is from the word wandering star. It's if you look at the etymology of the word planet, it actually means wandering star, and the earth is not a wandering star. So we hear a lot of that vegan will save the world. It cuts a lot of greenhouse emissions, that consuming meat is equal to like maybe flying you know, on an airplane, and you're burning up the planet much more, like that's what they say. But this is all targeted because the Vatican, who's at the helms of organizing our world, is making us believe in the falsification of global warming, because global warming is a ploy to make sure that they have and lay hold on all human resources legally. So that's what they're trying to do, because they're doing it illegally right now, but they're trying to make sure that they lay claim on all human resources legally, so that they can keep on controlling you. Because at the end of the day, when you want to stand to check what this controlling the resources are, you have to understand that the whole idea of controlling resources is controlling human beings. Because for one, you can't control the fishes in the sea, you can't tell the fish how to swim, you can't control the land, all right, and tell the land not to grow crops, or not to grow weeds, and not to grow plants. You can't really do that. The only thing you can do is control human beings. You limit their access to the fishes in the water and the land at which they can plant on. So all this idea of global warming is controlling the major resource. So what they're saying in effect is that the human beings are a virus on this world. That's the whole idea of global warming, that you are the problem. That's what they're trying to make it out to be. So we're going to try to look at this whole idea of being vegetarian and going vegan and look at it with the facts to see if it's actually true or not. Because on our videos we say a lot of times that, you know, we have hormones, that hormones are in our food, water, air that we breathe, the air and everything else around us, our clothing. And we're trying to make you understand where the hormones come from. The hormones, the most major hormones that affect us come from animals. And animals, in this case, we're talking about beef, meat, poultry, whatever the case that you want to call it. So we want to take a look and see How and why? Because even though we know that a lot of the hormones that affects us and makes us to come out the way that we are, that affects our daily life and regulates everything else that about the human body, comes mostly from animals and from the beef we eat. Should we then avoid meat? So we're going to answer that question. And then we're also going to answer the question in this particular video. If we can avoid meat, then how should we eat meat? We're going to tell you the proper way of eating your poultry or any other, let's say beef or any other animals that you have there that is not grown naturally. Grown naturally in the sense that, that you are the one responsible for growing that particular animal. That means you did not get it from somewhere that you have no idea about. Because people have to understand this. When you hear the term organic, because you hear that a lot in a lot of stuff that you buy out there, to be very, very honest and be very, very truthful, if you did not grow that plant or that animal, it can't be organic, because all what you're going off is what somebody else says. And you'll find out as we present in this video that almost every animal and every poultry out there that is consumed in the United States has to be FDA vaccinated, against certain diseases and so many other pesticides which go into these animals. And since the animals that we consume is the major source of hormones that we take into our body, you're going to find out where these hormones are, because hormones, to be very, very let's say very, very simplistic in what hormones actually mean. Hormones come from fat. That you just have to understand that. So a lot of the animals that we consume carry excess hormones that we don't need, and some sort of hormones that are very, very, let's say, negative, impact us negatively when we eat them. So we're going to try to answer all those questions on if we can avoid eating meat, how should we, or how are we supposed to eat meat? And then also we also take a look at the vegan questions to really answer what it's all about. So that's all we're trying to do today. We're trying to let people know how to eat meat, and that vegan, as is being touted all around in the media, is not all so cracked up to be. If you're going vegan, you're going towards a very dangerous route, and you're gonna get sick and you're gonna die. So we're gonna look at all the let's say all the meanderings around that's going into this whole vegan trend that's going on right now. So like we said before, this particular video is dedicated to saving lives, and we want people to know and be aware of what's going on around them when it comes to meat, which we take get so majority of the hormones that impact us in a very negative way. So let's get into it. We'll talk about a few things before we get into that. I'll just switch over right now, and I just want to show you a few things about talk about a few things, like for example like Bill Cosby, because Bill Cosby, sorry, did I say Bill Cosby? Bill Cosby, Mr. Huxtable, has recently been is he charged with sexual harassment for harassing so many ladies, albino ladies, over a couple of years, and none of them came up during those time, like 50 years ago or 30 or 40 years ago. Then all of a sudden they just came out here, which we featured before on our channel, that you should understand that this is all part of a ploy, because Bill Cosby, a black man, it's also part of the system of white supremacy, or albino supremacy as we call it, in today's world that is run by the Vatican. So let's take a look at some of that news, talk about a few things, then we can come back and continue talking about this whole thing about hormones and why we should eat meat, that meat is very, very necessary for our lives, as we will see from the Bible as well, the #1 book of all books which you should read. And we also talk about it from a very very close encounters with people who have been who know about meat, who have eaten meat. And so let's get the truth out of this, so that people can know how to live healthy and know how to even avoid the hormones that are being fed to us on a regular daily basis by the Vatican, through many subtle ways of saying that they're doing this for our own best benefit. Because the one thing you have to understand on this is that every meat, like I said before, goes through some sort of vaccination, and this vaccination affects the hormones, The hormones are stuck in the fat of the animal that we eat, and so when we consume these animals, we also consume these excess hormones into our bodies, which affects us. So since the Vatican and the FDA, the superior FDA, always says that this vaccination of so many animals and the things that they do to make this meat safe for us is for our own health, we have to ask this question: how do people, let's say for example, the Bushmen that they so much like to call in Africa, somewhere in the southern part of Africa, get their meats? These meats don't go through any vaccination, all right? These animals eat anything and everything, things that we could consider to be hazardous from our own point of view. But these Bushmen in South Africa, somewhere in Southern Africa, eat all these, rarefied meats and don't have any problems. Then all of a sudden, with human beings, with grown meat that we grow in our poultry, we have to send them through so many vaccinations under the guise to make it safe for our health. How do those Bushmen in Africa, South Africa, survive? And those of us out here just have problems with the meat that we eat, and we need vaccination for those meats, which in turn affects us negatively. So we're going to look at all those things and answer that question for us to know that this is just another hoax in the meat eating department, because the Vatican doesn't want you to understand that they put hormones in our meat. So they try to shy away from that fact and rather point you to being vegan. And vegan is only going to make you more weak and diseased than actually eating the meat, so that you can't point hands at them for for poisoning our meat in a way. So let's talk about some of those few things. We'll just hit on Bill Cosby first and talk about a few things, and we can come back and get on this particular series in which we are looking at meat. Is it good to be vegan or not? So let's go. So people, you have to understand that there is a lot of deception in the world we live today, and a lot of people can get their hands around it. They ask God so many questions. Why is there so much evil? Why are you letting this evil run rampant in our world today? What are you really up to? What's the idea? You have to understand that God is a very wise God, first of all. And if you understand that God is a wise God, there are certain things that you have to come to understand about that fact, why there is evil in our world. So next statements that I'm going to make is not based on, it's not talking about people, because I'm going to talk about color. And probably you've heard us say over and over again that white is not a color, is an absence of color. That when you say that you're white, what you're actually saying is that you're an albino, because in all sense of reality, we are all black people, and anybody with straight hair is an albino. So once you say you're white, what you're actually saying is you're an albino, because that particular identification of being white came from the Latin word albus. It's not a designation for color, because white does not exist as in color. As you can see, there is no human being that's white. White as in the white paper that you see. There's no such thing. There's no human being that's white. So what you're actually saying is that you're suffering from a lack of melanin, a genetic defect that's caused by inbreeding, in which our forefathers, our great woolly head or black forefathers, you guys would love to say it, over the years were inbreeding among themselves. That inbreeding means that siblings and parents are inbreeding without marrying anybody else outside of the external family, like something that's being practiced in so many royal families. The royal families that you see, especially in like places like Europe, like say the Rothschild, you always hear that the Rothschilds marry their own. They don't marry anybody outside of the family. So those are some of the practices that causes albinism, people to come out with straight hair and pale skin and have an ability or inability to tan. So if you want to know more about that, please get on the channel and look for the series called Myth of Whiteness. All right, it'll explain that much more better for you. Please look for the series called Myth of Whiteness on the channel and play it from part 1. We have a 15-part series at this point. It will help you. So let's get back into what we're trying to say. Like I was trying to make my statements to you, that the next few statements that I'm going to make for the reason why there's so much deception in this world, and God allows it, is this. Without a lack of color, you cannot see color. All right. And if the world was so colorful, all right, you wouldn't be able to distinguish the colors, see the beauty of it. So what am I trying to say? If you study in your Bible, it says in the beginning that God created the heavens and the earth. If you study your Geneva Bible from Genesis chapter 1, and if you see in that particular portion of the Bible, it says that the whole earth was without form and void. It was darkness. Darkness was over the whole earth. It had no form, it had no form and it was void. That's what I meant to say. So if you read that particular portion, the whole idea of the whole earth being in darkness right there is not talking about evil. It means that the earth had so much color that nobody could see it. So that's why the first thing God said, let there be light. Because what light is an illumination. Light makes you to be able to see color. All right. So the reason why there's so much evil in our world today is so that you can see the truth. Because if there was just so much truth, you wouldn't be able to see and identify who your enemy is. So that's the best way I can put it. The reason for so much deception is not so that the deception should destroy you, but so that you can be able to see clearly and vividly who your enemy really is. So that's why there's so much evil around us, and God allows it. And the evil also serves as a second purpose to destroy the enemies of God, because God does have enemies. Those who don't believe in Him, those who don't believe that God created the world. And there are so many, deluded and delusionists, as I would call it, around the world, who are actually enemies of God, because they are the ones helping the Vatican to propagate so many of these evils around us. Because you find so many people, delusional people, who believe in so many things but the truth. Why are they so many people like that? Because in their lives they naturally hate truth. So when you hate truth, all you're going to have is lies. That's just the way it works. If you love truth, no matter how little it is, and you love the truth, truth will always find you and come to you, because that's the way God has designed this world. Okay? So the evil is to make sure that it makes the people who love truth to see what the truth is like. And also the evil is for God's enemies to be destroyed as well, to lead them to destruction. We've explained that so much in the book. We don't have time to go into much detail about it here, because we're just trying to make you understand what's the reason for all this. So if you're interested in the book, please send us an email. The book is out. We'll send you a price and a cost of shipping when you do send us the email. We have a list that we have to go through, first of all. So if you get on the list, that means we are going to serve you on a first come, first serve basis. That means we have to go through a list and make sure that all the people who were interested in the book get the option to buy it first before we get on to you. But in the future, the book will be as available as soon as you ask for it. But for now, we have to go through that list. So let's get back on this particular subject of Bill Cosby. Like I was saying before, there is so much deception in our world, and Bill Cosby is part of it. But since we're living in a system of, albino supremacy, also white supremacy as they call it, everybody that is a black man of influence, has to be downgraded and degraded, because the whole idea is to make sure that the image in which we are all created in, which is black with woolly hair, is seen as a lesser image, an image of wrong. So you can never trace your origins back to God, because you have to understand that if black people and the whole humanity in the world, which is actually a black human race, is downgraded in, you can never ever believe that anything good can come from a black man. So when Yehoshua comes back, as he will come back, a lot of people are going to deny him, because black people of the image of the black man, which is Yehoshua, is one with woolly hair, which we are all created in, it has been degraded. So you would never ever believe that that black man that you see there could be the God that you read about in your Bible. So it leads to further people being much more deluded. So there is a lot of deception in our world, and there is no better way to explain it but just to make you see it physically every day. So one thing I would like to talk about is, for example, I think we've talked about this in the video before, that Donald Trump set in motion a plan to cut taxes. All right, we always hear about this every time. They want to cut taxes and make things, much more easier for the middle class, or the, as they would call it, the middle class society. We hear this all around the world, in most countries that are very heavily tax based, that they want to cut taxes and make things much more easier in the world. But you have to understand that that's a whole deception as well also. Because if the Vatican, who runs our governments and runs our world and owns everything that we use in our daily lives, really wanted to make things easier for the middle class. This is something that I think that everybody now here who's listening to this particular video, who goes to their town hall meetings and tries to talk to their senators or House of Representatives and don't know how to ask them questions about this tax plan and what should alleviate the suffering of the middle class, this particular video is for you. This particular next statement that I'm going to make. If Donald Trump, if the Vatican or the government is so much interested in the middle class and they want them to have a better life, you have to understand that the number one rule of all slavery is this: if you do not own land, you are a slave. We are slaves because we pay rent, because we do not own the land. So for example, because we do not own land, that's why we pay rent in the apartment buildings, the places of business that we do, and because and also we pay rent for, let's say, the houses that we live in. Because the number one rule of slavery is that if you do not own land, you're a slave and you have to pay rent. If the government is so much interested in alleviating your suffering, because you have to understand that this suffering is deliberate, it's done by the Vatican. The tightening of the news economically and financially over everybody is to control everybody into the new world order of the albino supremacists. If they're interested in alleviating that suffering of the middle class, this is what you should talk to your House of Representatives at your town hall meetings and your senators about. They should cut the rent that we pay on our apartment buildings, places of business, by half. Because you have to understand that most of the work we do, okay, and where all our money goes to rent. And every single year, the rent keeps increasing. So when Donald Trump says that he's trying to give you a tax cut, he's trying to bamboozle you guys into believing a lie. Because what's going to happen is this: when he increases, or when he gives you guys those tax cuts, in the next couple of years, just like in the George Bush scenario, they're going to tell you that they were borrowing money to give you a tax cut. So because they were borrowing money to give you a tax cut, they have to try to pay it back. And when that happens, the economy crashes. And so people start selling things off at a very cheap rate to pay off their debts. Because why? The interest rate is going to go up. So in a nutshell, tax cuts won't do any good for you. If the government is so interested, because the number one rule of slavery is this: if they want to make sure that they alleviate the suffering, the right thing to do would be to give you some sort of allowance to buy your own land without any property taxes and no state laws on that land. Because in the United States, people have land, but they can't even live the way they want on the land, because there are so many state laws, getting into the ownership of landed property that it becomes a hassle just living on it. So if the government is so much interested in alleviating the suffering, because we tell them, okay, let's get into the idea of, giving you landed property, or giving you some sort of help to get landed property, and removing those ridiculous state laws of the land so that you can live on your land any type of way you want, they're going to say it's a no-no. But let's take it one step. Let's bring it down to some place very safe for them. Tell them that you want them to reduce the rent. The lie they're going to tell you is this: that the properties are not owned by the government. But that's all a lie. Every property in the United States is owned by the government. They own it by liaisons or proxies. So if they're really interested, okay, in making sure that the middle class lives, tell this to your House of Representatives and Senators. They should cut your rent in half. Because when they cut your rent in half, you have enough money to save up for something else that you can do. And like I've always told you, always invest in a landed property. because that's the only way you're going to get out of slavery, to own land and know how to plant your own crops and grow your own animals. So that's what I wanted to say before I get into this Bill Cosby case, just for you to see that Bill Cosby's case is this. If you should notice this particular trend that's going on with Bill Cosby, or with black males in general. Every black male of importance, every black figure, all right, in the United States, or person of note, are all rather controlled by the Vatican. They are all agents of the Vatican. It doesn't matter if their name is Malcolm X. It doesn't matter if their name is Martin Luther King. It doesn't matter if their name is Bill Cosby. You have to notice that there's a certain trend that goes on around black males in general of importance. They are touted to be great men. Then along the way, down the line, they are brought down very low and made to be a ridicule. Why? Because the image in which we are created in is the image of God Almighty, and is black with woolly hair. And the devil wants to ridicule that image, so you would never have any belief in God, even though the devil himself is a black man with woolly hair. So that's how this whole thing works. So if you notice, there's always a trend, great black leader, then all of a sudden there is always some sort of thing going on, or he dies in a ridiculous manner, or he dies a laughing stock, or he's made rubbish of. So for example, let's say Michael Jackson. How did Michael Jackson turn out to be? A molester, a child molester that was painted all through the media. So you would never have any black person of image that you can look up, or black leader that you can look up to, because they're all tainted, because that is what the Vatican does. The Vatican controls all the figures. If they are white or Albanic, they won't really have any problem, because that's what they want you to look up to. But when you look up at the albino person, you're getting the wrong image, because that's not the image we're created in. Okay? So that's more like trying to make you believe in a fake albino lord that will sit in the third temple that's going to be built in Israel, when the Vatican or the Pope sits in there and declares himself solely to be God Almighty, because that's going to happen in the future. When you get our book, you'll understand that more. So this is the trend that goes on with all black leadership. They are always made to look very, very debased, tainted figures. So this is the same storyline that's going on with all black males from Martin Luther King. If you watch the movie called Selma, they tried to show you that he was having an external marital affair. You know, whatever black leadership you want to name up is the same trend. So the same thing with Bill Cosby here. A lot of people grew up watching Bill Cosby, but Bill Cosby himself is a stooge of the Vatican. He lies in bed with the Vatican. So right now what's happening here is because his time has been come for his image to be rubbish, so that any black person who used to look up to Bill Cosby will have that removed from him, will have that total idea of a black leader, a black male leader, a strong male leader who showed him good examples, a responsible man, removed from his psyche, so that you would always think that black people are not good enough, that they are horrible, and that there is no image of a black person that you can look up to, so that you will deny Yehoshua when you see him around the second time. So let's play this short clip of Bill Cosby right here, just to show you the Vatican code of numbers which is surrounding this story, so you can all know that it's all false, because it said that Bill Cosby molested all these beautiful Albanic women about 30 years ago. How many years? 30 years ago, and none of them said a word for 30 years. I'm very, very sure that there is no albino lady here who would get raped, and especially of somebody of importance like this, and not say any statements in 30 years. Then all of a sudden, all of them just said it at the same time. This is all nonsense. It's part of the game to make sure. The idea is this, is they want to make sure that you have no black leadership that you can look up to. So this all ties down to your belief in God as well. So let's play this short clip so you see the Vatican code of numbers, and how the albino supremacists who own all media like Fox News right here, CNN or whatever, lie to you day in and day out, and the way they talk. Because when you watch the news, you're watching an acting performance. You're watching a high performance Oscar nomination awarded acting. So I want you guys to notice that. Let's play this clip now.
the rest of the time.
Did he stand or did he just scream it from his chair?
He you know, I wasn't watching him when he actually said it, but as soon as he did, I noticed he was standing. All the rest of his lawyers were standing. He stood until basically the judge dismissed him, and then at that point, all the media ran out of the courtroom to try and get outside.
Andrea Constant, his victim, who brought these charges, is in court. Well, the state, of course, brings the charges, but she was the victim in this case. She was in the courtroom. Others who say they were victims of Bill Cosby were in the courtroom. I'm trying to get a picture together of what it was like when all the jurors came in, the judge is in his place, and then Bill Cosby is in his, the two tables with counselors on both sides are there. And then do they have the foreperson read the verdict, or does the court reporter read the verdict?
The foreperson read the verdict. The court reporter asked them what their verdict was, and the foreperson said guilty. Then each juror was told to ask if they agreed with the verdict as the foreperson read it, and they all answered and affirmed that they agreed with it. Andrea Constant was sitting in the front row behind the Commonwealth defense lawyer, or behind the district attorney. She was looking ahead. She didn't appear to show any reaction. A couple of rows behind me was a few of Cosby's accusers who were visibly upset. One of them was sobbing. You could hear her, and they escorted her out of the courtroom after the guilty verdict was read.
This morning, Lissa, the jurors asked for a specific part of the testimony to be read back. Tell us about that and what it meant.
They asked to hear back the entire testimony of Margot Jackson, and Margot Jackson is a Temple employee who worked with Andrea Constant and said she roomed with her on the road when Andrea, was the director of operations for the Temple basketball team. And she said that during one of those meetings, they were watching a news show, and a report came on about an accusation against someone famous, and Andrea said,
So as you see right here on the screen, it says Cosby has been convicted of 3 counts of assault. Let me try to see if I can read that well again. It says here, Cosby has been convicted of 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault. And it says that it carries a sentence of up to 10 years. So 3 times 10, that's 30, the Vatican Code of Numbers. As you keep on watching this particular news by Fox News, which is owned by the Vatican, like all media outlets are, you find out that it says that Cosby sexually molested so many women of over, let's say, over 60 women, all right? It's going to tell you that he was once accused in 2004, 2 plus 4, that's 6. It says, as you can read here, it says Cosby paid accusing more than $3 million in 2006 to settle lawsuit. $3 million, the Vatican Code 2006, 2 6s, all right? So this is all how the Vatican, tells you lies, because I'm very sure Cosby didn't do any of this. But because since he's a Mason himself, as all black leaders are, who call themselves black leaders, because people have to understand this. All opposition is controlled by the Vatican. All opposition, all right? So it doesn't matter if what color or ethnicity the person comes in, as long as if that person is in opposition to the system, he's controlled opposition. Because why? When you control the opposition, you can lead it to wherever you want it to go. So right here, Cosby is also part of the system. He's not outside the system, because he wouldn't have been Mr. Huxtable without the Vatican, because the Vatican owns all media. So who put him on your TV screens for you to watch and know him as Mr. Huxtable? It's the Vatican, the albino Vatican that's running our world today. It wasn't always an albino. It now is. It was once black with woolly hair. When you get a book, you get all that fine history. So let's move on now, because I just wanted to show you that, and let's get on to the subject of the day that we want to talk about today, which is talking about meat and being vegan and seeing if it's necessary for you to eat meat or not. Let me see if I can start this particular portion of the video with a Bible quote, because the Bible, like I said, is the best book of all time. It's the book that you should read, especially the Geneva Bible. It will give you an understanding, because this is how you should understand how to study your Bible. The Bible is literal. It's not symbolic as many pastors and agents of the Vatican will tell you in your churches. It's not symbolic in any way, shape, or form. The Bible is literal. If the Bible gets into any form of symbology, you have to understand that the people who were interpreting the text, or the people who were writing the text rather, we're using words describing future events. Because you have to understand, for example, let's say the person who was writing the book of Revelations lived, let's say, in the best way to put it would be maybe let's say maybe 20 AD. That means 20 AD. That means 20 AD after 20 AD would mean 20 years after, let's say, Yehoshua died and resurrected, right? And the person writing the book is trying to explain to you future events. And let's say the person is trying to explain what an aircraft is. Now remember, him living in that time has never seen an aircraft. And he's trying to explain what he saw in maybe the revelations that God gave to him. And he doesn't have a word for aircraft in his own language. Then he could use some sort of symbology as, I saw a bird with 2 wings fly that looked like a man-made bird. I'm just trying to give you an example. So in that kind of scenario then, what he's trying to explain is trying to explain something in the future that he has no words for in the present, that the people that in his own era could have an understanding of. So he writes it in that kind of like words. And when we read it today, it sounds like some sort of symbology, but no, it's not. The Bible is literal from start to finish. If anybody tells you that it's symbolic, it's telling you a lie. It's literal. It's just like you writing a letter to someone you love or care about. You give them very specific instructions. What would be, I want you guys to think about this. What would be the benefit of God putting these words, all right, and writing out words as instructions to us and then making it difficult for us to understand it? I want you to think about it. Would you write a letter to someone you love, let's say your husband, your wife, your child, and make it very complicated for that child to understand those words? Would you do such a thing? I don't think so. So the Bible is literal. It's only symbolic because the pastors have told us that it's symbolic, because the Vatican has made us to believe that it's symbolic. It's not symbolic in any way, shape, or form. All right. So like I've said before, if you're going to church, all right, you're worshiping between an organized building that has 4 walls. I want you to understand that you're in the synagogue of Satan. That's what the Bible says. All right. The synagogue of Satan, written about in the book of Revelation, is talking about churches. It doesn't matter what name the church comes in, if it's an Orthodox or Protestant or the Catholic Church, it's all one and the same. We get into very specific details about that in a book. When you get it, you'll understand. We don't have time to explain too much because these videos are going to run too long. So with that said, let's now switch gears and go back to what the video is all about first, before we end up with the transvestigation of Billy Graham and Post Malone, which is talking about how we should eat meat, what meat is, what why the hormones are in our meat, and why, or what the hormones come from, which is actually comes from the fat that we eat from the meat. We'll want to get into all that. So let's do that and start this off. So how we're going to make you watch this particular section of the video to understand what's going on is that we have to make a correlation between meat, protein, fat, and hormones. So let's start with meat first. So meat comes from, let's say, any form of animal that you eat. It doesn't matter if it's fish, it doesn't matter if it's poultry, it doesn't matter if it's beef as in cattle. Now when we eat meat, we get 2 things from meat, right? We get protein and we get fat. All right. Now the correlation between fat and our lives is that it's from fat that we get hormones. All right. So that means in the human body, your whole hormonal system is a fat-based system. So if you have less fat in your body, I'm talking about less fat in the single-digit range of, let's say, 9% and below, you're gonna put your body through what I would call a very dangerous level of organization and living. That means you could end up dead because your body doesn't have enough hormones to be going through the central nervous systems and everything else for you to be able to live proactively. Another thing is this, that you have to understand, is that when we eat meat, we get two things from the meat, or we get one thing in excess which we shouldn't be getting from the meat, and that's always fat. And since hormones are tied to the fat, we are sucking in more hormones into our body because the Vatican is deliberately feeding these animals with so much exogenous chemicals and vaccines that's making it to have so much hormones, all right, which is passed on to human beings. And a lot of people eat a lot of meat without understanding how they should eat it, which we're going to talk about later by the end of this video, on how you should eat meat and how to make it safe for yourself. So like I've said before, we started with meat. The correlation is that when we eat meat, we get two things: protein and fat, and that hormones come from fat. Now, why do we need to eat meat? Because you have to understand that the human being or the human body does not store protein. So that means you need to, on a daily basis, your body needs protein to go through or make sure that you are alive and well. That's the best way I can put it. So what's happening is this: when you eat plant protein, you do not have enough protein in your body. Now, why is that the case? All right, here's the reason why. The only organisms in the world which can store protein and create protein are plants. Okay? The best way to start this understanding is that when you go back to the start of all things, in the start based on the Bible, God said that he had given man, all right, every plant of the field for meat. That means at the beginning of all times, we're not supposed to eat meat. Meat was not on a dietary requirement. We ate of the plants. And before the flood, we had enough vegetation to take care of all our protein needs. We did not need to eat meat, all right? So after the flood, a lot of that vegetation, all right, that plant vegetation, which we now drive through our cars based on crude oil, because if you can find that there is so much crude oil around the world, this is all based on the plants that did die during the flood, which we use now to drive as gasoline. So a lot of the vegetation of the world was destroyed during the flood. So we do not have enough plants right here. We do not have enough quality of plants to give us the protein that we need. So after the flood, if you notice in your Bible, which I think I'm going to show you in a minute or two, after the flood, God now gave Noah and the rest of creation the right to eat meat. So before the flood, meat was not, that means we didn't have to kill poultry, we didn't have to kill any animals, we didn't have to grow any cattle. All we needed was to till the ground. Okay? So, but after the flood, God now said, you guys need to eat meat because you need protein to survive. And remember, when we eat meat, we get two things. We get the protein and we get fat. And hormones and fat, we get the hormones that we need from the fat we eat or the fat in our bodies. So remember that. So let me see if I can pull up some Bible portions just to show you that before we can continue on with this particular video. It's going to be a long video, so if you can't sit through a 2-hour, 3-hour video, we don't know how long it's going to be, then just pause the video and just quit at this point in time. All right, so let's go. So the first Bible portion that I'm going to pull out is from Genesis chapter number 1. I'm going to read from verse 29. If you're interested in reading this with me, also pause the video at any point in time, copy out that link. I'm actually using Bible Gateway. So now let's read this, Bible Gateway. Let's read this. It says, "And God said, Behold, I have given unto you every herb bearing seed, which is upon all the earth, and every tree wherein is the fruit of a tree bearing seed shall be to you for meat." Now, the word meat right there, right here, as you see right here, is from a Hebrew word called okla, and okla means food. So the right way to read this would be, and God said, behold, I have given unto you every herb bearing seed which is upon all the earth, and every tree wherein is the fruit of a tree bearing seed, that shall be to you for food. Right? Okay, so then a lot of people might read this particular verse and have and think that it's talking about that God was saying here in Genesis that man should eat the cattle or the beast. But if you read it properly, you will see it says, likewise to every beast of the earth. What does it mean? That means to every beast of the earth. It's also telling you the same thing. The plants that you shall eat is only the plants that you shall eat for food. Does it make sense? So that's why, because if you read here in verse 30, it says, likewise. So that means the same thing I say to man is the same thing I say to animals. So he says, likewise to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the heaven, and to everything that moveth upon the earth, which hath life in itself, every green herb shall be for food. And it was so. All right. So this verse is not talking about that man should eat meat. It's just saying the same instruction I've given to man in verse 29, sorry to say, that he should eat of the plants as food, is the same instructions I give to the animals, that they should eat plants as food. So what changed? So for example, right now you find out that there are so many animals eating other animals, right? Have you guys noticed that? The change is because when the law was changed for man, that man should eat animals, the right was also given to animals to eat other animals. So for example, you find that snakes swallowing a lot of like other snakes, and lions eating like deers and whatsoever, is because the instruction changed. So let's show you where that instruction changed after the flood. Let's see if we can find it. So here is where the instruction changed from telling man that they should eat only plants, vegetarian-based meal, because before the flood, that's all what man ate, and man was of very great stature, very big and very tall. For more information on that, you have to get our book, which is very, very important. We're not just trying to sell you a book, because we don't have time to explain a lot of things, because the video would be way too long, because already we are past the 1 hour mark, and we haven't even got into the meat and details of the video yet. So on this particular portion of the Bible, we're still reading from Bible Gateway. We're reading from the Geneva Bible, and we're reading from verse number 9, and I think we're reading from verse number where's the verse right here? Hold on a second, let me get okay. We're reading from verse number 3 and chapter number 9. So Geneva Bible, Genesis chapter number 9, verse number 3, and follow my mouse. It says, everything that moveth and liveth shall be meat, shall be food for you. As the green herb have I given you all things. So did you see that? The instruction changed. The first instruction before the flood was, all plants are food for you and animals. That means even the lions that we see today, and so much all the carnivorous animals out there, were eating only plants for survival. So, but after the flood, because much of the vegetation had been destroyed, as we see today that there is so much crude oil, which we get gasoline from, and so many other things that we use petroleum from, that's been on. I mean, petroleum has been around for about 2 decades now, and it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. It's not ending. So that means there was a lot of vegetation. All right. So imagine all that vegetation was destroyed during the flood. There is not enough plants with enough sufficiency for the protein needs that we need anymore today. So because that happened, God now gave the instruction that you have to eat meat. So the first thing God even says after the flood is, everything that moveth and liveth shall be food for you. It's talking about animals. Everything that moves and lives. So anything that's an animal or organism, an insect, a fish, whatsoever that moves, is now food for you. As the green herb have I given you all things. So the very first instruction is to eat meat. So where is this whole vegan idea coming from? Because you hear a lot of people say that, I'm going ketogenic, I'm going vegan. You are killing yourselves, because plants cannot give you enough protein and cannot give you enough fat for you to be sustainable. in your daily life. You're going to become very weak. And a lot of other mistakes a lot of people do is that when they say they go vegan, they try to, pile up the carbohydrates, but the carbohydrates will still make you fat. And it was not going to give you enough energy because you're lacking in the quality department of protein, which can only come from animals today. Now, a lot of people want to ask the question, we're going to talk about that later, but because we want to play some clips so we can tell you how the Vatican lies to us deliberately. Because even though we know that the reason why a lot of us get, sick and have so many hormonal problems is because we are consuming a lot of meat, but we are consuming the meat wrongly because we don't know how to prepare the meat. And we're going to tell you all about that in this particular video. So let's go play some clips. And we're going to play the clips in a way just to start off by telling you what, how dangerous it is for you to go vegan. All right. A lot of people attribute that going vegan is going to help them reduce the fat in their bodies, but they don't understand what the fat really does. Because if you don't have enough fat in your body, you're just going to die. If you have too much fat, you're going to live, but you're not going to live very productively. So there's a difference. So, and I want people to understand this before we start watching these videos and just playing the clips through and through. Being overweight doesn't mean you're unhealthy. So I want you to remember that. So a lot of people, because when you go to the doctors, the doctor will tell you blah, 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 and that you're overweight or you have a problem. I want you to understand that the whole medical association is designed by the Vatican, and anything that the Vatican has its hand in it doesn't have any good. Because from the videos you're going to be watching, you're going to hear doctors speaking, telling you that you should have fat, and some doctors are going to be telling you to eat meat, and some will tell you not to eat meat. So which one is it? So that's why we started by showing you from the Bible that it does say that you should eat meat, and then we're going to go and show you people who have experienced it as fact to show you the difference between eating meat and not eating meat. Okay? So that's all what we're going to do. So do not base your life on what a doctor says. Doctors are not really there for your own good. Because for me, for example, I'm a very healthy male. All right? And one of the lies of, when you visit a doctor and they talk to you about stuff like high blood pressure and hypertension and all that stuff is that they try to make us believe that everybody has a certain rate in which your blood pressure is supposed to be at, or your heart rate is supposed to pump for you to be healthy. But that's not true. We are all different. So what you might consider to be high blood pressure for someone may not be high blood pressure for another. So there is no way to say that everybody has the same high blood pressure across, the genders and across the ethnicities and across whatever, across whatever, demographic that you want to put them into. It's not the case. Because for me, for example, I'm someone, I've always been in athletics, always been in sports. So I'm very, very healthy. All right. I would say I work out like maybe 4 times in a week, and I'm not just talking about exercise, because there's a difference between exercise and working out. I'm working out, okay? And I was looking for this happened to me like a couple of years back. I was trying to get a job, and I had to go for some sort of physical test. So on the physical test, when I sat down with the doctor, he looked at my he measured my heart palpitations or took my blood pressure and everything else, and he told me, you have high blood pressure. I'm like, how do I have high blood pressure? Because going to the doctor always makes me nervous, so I don't like visiting doctors. So immediately I knew I was going to go for a test. My mind is running, I'm anxious and everything else. And so because of that, the doctor actually knew that I was anxious at the moment when he was taking my blood pressure. But he said, nevertheless, that I have high blood pressure, that he should set me on some medication. I have never had any heart problems. I have never been sick, never been in a hospital. All right. And all of a sudden, I have to take medication just because this doctor said so. Then they set up an appointment for me because I was looking for a job, and I had to go for the appointment, but I missed it deliberately. because there was nothing wrong with me. So you just can't trust doctors in everything they say. You have a brain to think. Think about what you're hearing, if it does make sense or not. Because there is no way in this God's given earth that all of us can have the same, let's say, level of blood pressure. And that makes us either, have high blood or low blood pressure, because we are all different. That's just what I want you to take from this. So going back to the subject of what I was saying, being overweight doesn't mean you're unhealthy. All right? So having so much fat on your body doesn't mean you're unhealthy. Unhealthy means the best way to define if you're unhealthy is that are you functioning right day in and night? That's all what it takes. So don't base yourself on the fat content that you carry around. That's very, very wrong. Try to be healthy. That means do the things that you need to be healthy. Live healthy, walk healthy, exercise. That's all you need to really do. So don't base your fat content on how healthy or not you are, because we are all different. So that's what I want you to take from this before we go on. So let's move on and play some clips and destroy a lot of these myths about meat, hormones, and fat, protein, and see where this is going. Because the whole idea of being vegan, as the Vatican wants all of us to be, is to shy us away from the fact that, number one, that they poison the meat, and that a lot of the hormones that we feed into our body come from meat. Secondly, they're trying to use it to make us believe in the idea of global warming, by making us believe that the less meat we eat, all right, that the more healthy that we become, when in reality we become sick. And we are not the problem. Human beings are not the virus or the problem on the earth, as the Vatican has made us out to be, because they all worship the devil, and they're trying to make all of us worship the devil with them as well. So let's play some clips and go through some of those myths. So the first clip I'm going to play is, I want you to listen to the words very, very carefully. If you have to rewind this video, pause it and play it back again, do so, because I want you to listen to the words. It's very, very important that you listen to the words so you can understand the whole idea of where this vegetarianism or veganism or whatever you want to call it, because I don't even know the right pronunciation for it, but you guys know what I'm talking about, is going. So you know where it's going, that it's not coming from you. It's very, very deliberate. It's a propaganda, or it's a lie campaign by the albino Vatican to make us all sick and weakly, so that we can't stand up to the New World Order and go about by telling us these lies about being vegan, that is going to save the world, all right, and tie it to global warming. That's the whole idea of this whole thing about veganism spreading around the world like crazy. You have to eat meat. You have to, if you have to survive. Meat is not your problem. Meat is not your problem. I have to say that again. Meat is not your problem. Is how much of it that you consume, that's your problem, and how you're consuming it. Meat is not your problem. Is how much of it you consume and how you're consuming it, that is. Even though the Vatican has poisoned a lot of our food and animals that we eat, it is still not your problem. It's how you eat it and how you consume it, that is. And we're going to show you how to do it right. So let's play this short clip first. And for you, I want you to listen specifically to the words. Then we'll come back and play some more clips, and then I'll explain what's really going on here with every clip. So let's do that.
That's one of the fastest growing food movements, and now a new study shows that 1 in 5 of us in the UK would consider a vegan diet. There are now 500,000 vegans in the UK, and the diet has risen by 250% in the last decade. Well, as well as being cited for its health benefits, veganism is said to have positives on the planet. So should we all be going vegan?
The startup is researching plant products that can replace meat. Impossible Foods garnered media attention after receiving massive investments from Bill Gates and Hong Kong tycoon Li Ka-shing.
We're not here for small change. We're interested in very large, ambitious change to transform the food system.
It was so delicious. It's called the Impossible Burger, and it tastes like meat. It bleeds like meat, but it looks like meat, but it's actually made of like beets and other things.
McDonald's has good business intentions to try to turn a profit. They're against the trend of the world wanting to become healthier. There's actually more and more fast casual Chipotle style restaurants that have been started by very, very successful.
So I played that clip from the 2:26-minute mark here, and I told you to listen to the words. First of all, you saw this particular article says that go vegan, save the planet. So the idea of making people go vegan is because the Vatican wants us to believe that we can save the planet. And they're trying to tell us that eating meat is the cause of our problems without telling us that they are the cause because they are injecting a lot of the meat that we eat with a lot of vaccinations and a lot of hormones which stick to the fat. And so when we consume the meat and we get protein, we get excess hormones also which endanger our bodies and make our bodies work overtime. So it's more like this. The body is supposed to function under a very specific set of rules of kind of hormones, all right? So when you give the body excess hormones, what does it do? The body has to work more. So that makes us, have much more problems because the body is not resting. It is in overdrive all the time because of excess hormones, all right? Does it make sense? So I wanted you guys to listen to the specific words of what they were saying. So when I played that video, this lady came out now and said, that a lot of people going vegan, she talked about it, and that it has health benefits, and that it also has a more far-reaching effect into changing our world and lifestyles. Then from then on, after this particular lady moved over, somebody else came up and started making a report that the person who's involved in making like vegan meals right here received a lot of donation from Mr. Bill Gates, which we have covered on our channel already because Bill Gates is not the gender that he claims because it's actually a she. If you're interested, go look for the video on our channel called Small Soft Bills and Window Gates on our channel, which we talk about Bill Gates. So Bill Gates is a stooge of the Vatican. Anytime you hear Bill Gates, just know that he's working for the Vatican. So this particular vegan company received some money from Bill Gates for its production, of whatever vegan food that they wanted to make. Then the next thing we played was to show you about the guy who's talking about. He said, we're not just here for small change. That means this is serious stuff that he's talking about. This is the idea of what the Vatican is trying to do. We're not just here for small change. We're here for very big change. We want to transform the whole food market. So what they're trying to say is that they're trying to send us down the road of being more vegan. And being more vegan means that we are going to get much more sickly individuals from being vegan, as we'll find out in the next couple of videos that we're going to play. But let's play another video of someone who's known on YouTube as, let's say, a fitness guru, and how the Vatican sells this idea to us of being fit. We're going to show you a virile black male. His name is Mike Rashid. He's known as a YouTube fitness guru. He's a trainer or whatsoever. And he tells you how he's getting off meat, all right? That meat caused him problems. So this is how the Vatican uses this kind of people to sell us the idea that meat is dangerous, with not telling us that it's not the meat that's the problem, it's how we consume it, all right? How we consume it and how much of it we do. Because of the excess, hormones that are in the meat because the Vatican put them in there. So this is how the Vatican sells us life, because you're going to look at this guy and you're going to say, oh, let me actually see if I can pull up the video of the dude real quick. So this is the guy right here. As you can see, he looks very, very fit and athletic. He's a fitness guru. He has a lot of subscribers on his YouTube channel. He's known around the world as somebody who's a trainer. And he's going to tell you how he got off meat. So this is the kind of people that, if you're the kind of person who likes looking up to people, all right, you're going to look at this guy as a case and example of how you should be, and you're going to get it wrong because you've made a lot of the people that the Vatican puts in front of you to be your idols. And God always said, have no idols. You can make man your idol, or something, a material thing your idol. And we have so many idols in our lives. Some people can go to sleep without hearing Justin Bieber play. All right? Some people can go to sleep without hearing their favorite speaker in church, because a lot of people who go to church just love the idea, the feeling that it gets, because they just love to see that man talk instead of following the truth, looking for the truth. We are following man. So this is how the Vatican makes you believe in this whole vegan thing, because based on what this guy is going to talk, because this is a snake's oil salesman, the worst of the worst that you could ever find in the fitness industry. Because like I've said before, the whole fitness industry from start to bottom is a lie, is a scam. Like I've always said, if you want to get fit, there's only one thing you need to do. Do some deadlifts with the pronated grip. That means both arms facing one way, and you'll be fine. It's the only exercise you need. Okay, so let me play this clip so you can see how this guy tells you lies and how the Vatican uses this kind of people to keep on selling towards the idea that being vegan is the way to go. As you can see, this video says eating 1 meal a day, adjusting to the vegan life. All right, so that's all what it's all about. So let's play this clip.
I wasn't on the road traveling. When I was home, I can plan my meals more, prepare meals. So, you know, I will go multiple days without eating meat, and there was no problem. When I'm traveling on the road, I would need to eat meat because it was just easier. So me getting off of meat, and I advise this for anybody that's planning to do that, I say ease into it. Don't just go cold turkey. It's hard to change a habit that you've been doing it your entire life. So this was a more realistic way for me to get off of meat. Now, why did I stop eating meat? I stopped eating meat because I feel so much better without eating it. Now, when I started to alternate, or when I reduced the amount of meat that I ate, first of all, I didn't just reduce it in days, but I also reduced the variety of meat. I dropped everything but salmon. So I used to have, I'm sure you guys remember me complaining about pain in my knees. I used to have the worst pain in my knees to where I thought I needed surgery. I thought something really bad was happening in both of them. I went to my doctor. Even before an x-ray, he did some movement with my legs and my knees. He said, you have no structural damage. So that pain you're feeling is inflammation. So that could be two things. One, stress. One, what I'm putting into my body. I would say sometimes I deal with stress, but not to that extent. So it had to be the food, and more specifically the meat, because when I reduced the amount of meat I was eating, that pain went away. That went away months ago, right? And it's like a miracle. Now, granted, I was supplementing with turmeric as well, and I still am. I'll link that down below. But the turmeric and the fact that I wasn't eating much meat at all, that pain was gone, okay?
So as you heard here, that's how Mike Rashid, who would be a stooge of the fitness industry, trying to sell you a scam that the reason why he had pain in his knees. Now, I want you to listen to these words of this snake oil salesman as a fitness representative right here. He said that he went to the doctor. The doctor told him you had no structural damage to your knees. All you have is inflammation. And so that when he stopped or reduced eating meat and just had only salmon, all the pain went away. And that's why he looks this good as a fitness instructor. This is how the Vatican tells you lies. Reducing meat? Oh, yes. You reduce meat because you can reduce the meat because you don't want maybe to get excessively overweight or fat, all right, or have too much fat. But meat has no correlation with pain in your joints. It's supposed to even help you heal because that's what protein does. If you're deficient in protein, your body cannot heal because we need protein for everything. Our body doesn't store protein. Protein is the building blocks of who we are as a human being. Without protein, you're going to be dead. So here is this fella right now telling you that because he reduced his meat and he's getting to in the vegan lifestyle, that his pain went away. And somebody's going to believe because he's trying to get fit, because he's a fitness instructor, and you're going to say, I need to stop eating meat totally for me to be fit and as good looking as this snake oil salesman right here in Mike Rashid. Okay, so now we play you a few clips. Let's move over and play clips from a doctor telling somebody to eat, not to eat, that rather they should all go vegan and don't eat meat anymore, because the biggest animals in the world all eat plants only. The strongest animals in the world all eat plants. So human beings should do the same. And we're gonna take a look at that and think about it logically to see if it's real, if it's true, that we can follow what those doctors said, because they are doctors of the Vatican, as you will find out sooner or later. So let's do that. So as usual, please listen very carefully to the words of this video that I'm gonna play. It's very, very important. Pay special attention. Pay attention to it, okay? So let's do that.
And we are so concerned about getting enough protein. Do we have to eat meat to get complete protein?
Oh my God. Oh my God. You want me to jump off this building, don't you? Well, first of all protein is made by plants. I'll state that again for the record. All protein is initially made by plants, all of it. And it is not necessary to eat animal tissue in order to get protein. Only plants have the ability to actually take nitrogen from the air, break those molecules apart, and incorporate that nitrogen into amino acids and then make protein. Any protein you get from an animal is simply recycled plant protein.
If you ate a diet that was calorically adequate, and even things like brown rice and broccoli, and you got enough of it, you'd get enough both quantity and quality of protein. 2,000 calories of brown rice and broccoli is going to be about 80 grams of protein a day, including the essential amino acids that you need in order to maintain optimum health.
I mean, grains are loaded with protein. Beans are loaded with protein. Vegetables are loaded with protein.
You really want to get your protein from plants because plant proteins have a much more beneficial effect on our physiology.
The funny thing about protein is most Americans get about twice the amount they need. Most Americans get less than half the amount of fiber they need. But the conversation tends to always be about protein. So in my mind, it's just this magical marketing campaign that protein has taken on over the decades.
The question is not where do you get your protein, it's where do you get your fiber?
I have never in my professional career seen a protein deficiency. I've never seen someone come in eating normal amounts of calories and they're protein deficient. You just don't see that.
So human milk has the lowest protein content ever in any species ever tested. I mean, that's the fluid that's been designed by evolution over millions of years. And so it's like the perfect food for human babies, right? Perfect food, lowest protein content any other mammal. And so it gives a sense of kind of the protein requirements for anything. So look, then rat milk, ape milk, donkey milk, any milk has ever been tested.
And you hear this a lot in bodybuilders. They're like, well, I need, chicken, or I need fish to be, to be strong, to build muscle tissue. That is utter nonsense. The largest, strongest terrestrial animals on the planet are all herbivores. The biggest, strongest animals are all herbivores.
When we bring in people and they're on.
So one of the lies that this snake oil salesman, a Vatican stooge, doctor, or whatever name you want to call him, an actor, or whatever case might be, one of the cases is trying to make for you eating meat. Because first of all, he starts off by saying that you hear a lot of stuff like bodybuilders talk about the fact that they need to eat meat, poultry, fish, or whatsoever for bodybuilding. People, I have to make you understand one thing. One of the things that you have to follow if you want to know a lot about, how to live, and how to be healthy is bodybuilding, or bodybuilders in short. Because whatever you take, when you look at a bodybuilder, whatever the bodybuilder takes into his body is what's going to show. So if he doesn't eat right, he's not going to have enough muscles. Those muscles come from protein. That's why bodybuilders eat meat, fish, and any form of protein that they can get besides, because they can get it just from plants. So because this snake oil salesman knows that he's going to be called out on what he was just saying, he's trying to tell you that you don't need to follow what bodybuilders say, that the biggest animals in the world, he now makes that assessment by saying that the biggest animals in the world are all herbivores. But here's the question. And this is one thing a lot of people don't understand about all these big animals who actually eat only plants. The animal like elephants right here, this rhinoceros right here, and any other herbivore out there, that very big, tall animals like maybe giraffes as well, that are herbivores, and horses possibly, you find out that all of these animals, even the goats that we eat and the cattle that we eat, the cows, they spend, if there's 24 hours in a day, these animals spend the better part of 18 hours just eating. They're eating day and eating night. So they are going to get enough of the protein they need because they spend all their time eating. Now with human beings, no matter how, gluttonous a human being is, the most time you're going to spend eating, you calculate, you add up all the number of hours that you're going to eat in your whole entire day. It's going to be 4 hours of eating. When I say 4 hours of eating, I'm not talking about preparing food. I'm talking about continuously putting food in your mouth, as these animals do right here, as you see on the screen. So that's why a herbivore like this, or this rhinoceros, can get pretty big, because it's spending 18 hours eating, just eating and doing nothing else. No human being can spend 18 hours eating. It's impossible. So this animal spends 18 hours just eating every single time. It's going to have enough protein in its body, showing right here. With human beings, you can't spend 18 hours of the day just eating. The most you're going to eat, if you're a very gluttonous person, is 4 hours. That's the most. 4 hours of continually putting food in your mouth. That cannot get you enough protein. That's why you need to eat meat. Because if you're just eating plants, you can't get enough protein. So now let's play a short clip from somebody who's been on a vegan diet for 17 years and why he had to get off that vegan diet. I want you to listen to his words and what his doctor told him, because he's going to say, because this next salesman here from the Vatican who claim they are doctors say you should not, that if you can get all your protein from just eating plant-based food, that you do not need meat, poultry, or cattle or beef in your diet of fish. All right? Let's hear from somebody who has lived the vegan life for 17 years and what he has to say. And you're going to take a good look at the fella and see if what he's saying is true, because he's going to show you everything. So let's play that.
To the Porsches, it's more drivability around here in Sydney, living in Glebe Point Road. I just want to do a quick video why I quit being a vegan after 17 years. I went to a doctor's this morning and I did some blood tests for cycling and stuff like that for the races coming up. And the doctor said, "You're a vegan, I'll see your shirt. You can't be a vegan." I said, "Why is that?" He goes, "Because you're going to be protein deficient." So after 17 years, over 400,000 Ks, stripping off all the body fat, I'm quitting. I have to quit because my fat, obese, sincerely doctor said, vegans don't get enough protein. So I'm going to go into this video why you can't be a vegan. It's my last vegan meal, and I'm going to be drinking liquid steak after this. So this is cheers for 17 years vegan, beetroot juice, and I'm fucking out. Dropping the mic, motherfuckers. Done.
Alright, so let's get into it. We also have Natasha featuring throughout this video. She is a vegan, but I'm going to try and help her quit as well, because it is unhealthy. You know, I mean, look how underweight I am. You can see my abdominal muscles, and that is definitely a sign of ill health. You know, the average Aussie is overweight or obese, and I definitely feel too lean for society. So this is my last vegan burger. This is my last ever. This is at Soul Burger Sydney. It's my last ever vegan burger. From here on, I'm going to McDonald's. I'm eating Big Macs, and I'm supporting. Look at that leanness. You know, it just made me too lean after 17 years. Just stripped off all the body fat. So I'm giving up the fruit. Fruit, just not enough protein in fruit, and I'm going to go back to my old lifestyle of shitty reality, late nights, late mornings, and just late mornings in general. Actually, late nights as I lean, and again, just feeling too lean in today's society. So this is all the vegan food I used to eat. I'm getting rid of it all. Throwing it all out in the garbage bin. I'm not even going to give it to the birds. I'm going to chuck it straight to landfill. You know, so I'm giving up the pasta and goodbye fruit. Just wanted to have one last banh mi as a vegan banh mi. So I'm giving that up. Watermelon in the park in the sunshine. Giving it up. Getting rid of that. Getting rid of that banh mi experience in Sydney. $3.50 banh mi's, vegan banh mi's, it's game over. And you can see here we've got some food. That's the vegan ice cream, giving that up. Salsa, giving that up. Giving up the Coles white bread. And giving up those crimson seedless grapes. And just giving up those sunny mornings. This is a vegan pie, gravy with a Joseph F's written across Australia. Again, look at that. See, just too lean. I'm not the average Aussie anymore. And I don't like it. You know, it's a bit delusional. They're thinking that the vegan diet was healthy. This is vegan food here. It doesn't even look good. It doesn't even look good. And vegan girls don't even look good. So it's like, I just, you know, and protein, this is so expensive. All the protein was so expensive. I was spending $74 a day on protein because you can't get protein from fruit and vegetables and bread. There's no protein in that. You need to have a protein supplement. And I was going through like a kilo a day, $74 a day vegan protein. So it just wasn't sustainable. You know, so giving up the soup, dip minestrone vegan soup, toast, giving up the toast, giving up the za'atar bread, Marrickville, the Marrickville za'atar, giving that up, you know, giving it up, right all up, not enough protein. That's my it's fat, doctor said. And someone said on the internet as well, on Facebook, I read a comment saying, you can't be vegan because you won't get enough protein. And so they're right, I'm quitting, I've quit. So thank you, Facebook person, anonymous Facebook person. Actually, thank you the last 17 years. Every motherfucker out there who said you won't get enough, where do you get your protein from? They were right, I was wrong. It was all an illusion. All those running races I won, all those cycling climbs I dominated, all the 400,000 Ks I rode as a vegan, that's all that full netty bra stuff, it is all an illusion. It was a hologram. I faked everything. It was funky chunky vegan pies, finished. Fruitarian supermarket, I'm never ever going to step foot in anywhere that's got fruit. Rice, no more. Bye-bye rice. You know, bye-bye organic frozen blueberries with sugar. Gone. Breakfast outdoor, eating, that's not breakfast, that's dinner. That's vegan dumplings with some juice. It's gone, finished. Outdoor office, digital nomad, no. Cereal, cinnamon crunch cereal with brown sugar, editing video.
So you heard this fellow talking about that after 17 years of being vegan, he had to quit because he couldn't have enough protein, he didn't get enough fat. And we're going to talk about how fat is very, very important in the next video and where those fat comes from, because if you don't have fat in your body, you're literally dead. So for example, when you get on if you see a lot of bodybuilders on stage when they are what they call the on-season stage competition mode, you find that they are very lean and very ripped and very cut. That's a very unhealthy human being that you're looking at. That's just something you have to understand. So this is what this fellow is trying to tell you here, that being that lean and being that cut is very, very, very unhealthy. So he's a very unhealthy human being. So that's why I needed to let you guys know at the start of the video that, you know, being overweight does not mean that you're unhealthy. So you have to understand that being overweight does not mean that you're unhealthy. Unhealthy just means that you have a very low percentage of body fat in your body, which is always in the single digit range. That means from 9, 8, single digit, all right, 9 below. So I'm gonna leave a link in the description so you guys can go watch this particular fellow talk about his vegan lifestyle and how he's gonna quit. But regardless, that is the link right there. I'll put it in the description. You can pause the video and copy that out if you just want to watch it before you go to the link description section of the video. So let's go over and play one clip. At least you heard this guy talk about it, that even vegan girls are unhealthy, that anybody that he's just telling you that the whole vegan thing is an illusion. It's not real. You can't survive off eating just plants only without any meat. Okay? So you heard him say all that he's going to talk to his girlfriend and tell him, you know, try to make her quit as well because she doesn't want to quit. And you can see how lean the girl is. She's probably going to die soon, because people, you have to understand this. For a man on a vegan diet can survive longer than a woman. Why is that the case? Because we've talked about it before on several videos. A woman is designed for 2 or more people, okay? A female is not designed for one person. A man, the biological constituent of a man is made for just one person, but a female is made for 2. Because why? A female is designed to carry children. So a female will always have more body fat, all right, and require more protein intake to maintain that body fat, or require more meat to maintain the body fat and the protein that she needs for herself and for her children, which she will carry. So if you're a female and you're going vegan, you're going to have a lot of hormonal problems. A lot of hormonal problems, because all our hormones are tied to fats. And that's what we're going to show you, of how dangerous it is for you to be lean, trying to get lean, get on a vegan diet and try to reduce your body fat as a female. As a woman, you need that body fat to be healthy. Okay? We're not talking about eating and being obese or whatsoever. Even then, you still need that body fat to be healthy, specifically for a female more than a man. So let's play the next clip so you can listen to this guy rant about how dangerous that people in the fitness industry are trying to tell you that being below 10% body fat is healthy for you, when it's very, very unhealthy. Let's play that next clip.
Products who are telling you guys that it's okay to be sub 10% body fat while 100% drug free. And you know, this really pisses me off, because this is an irresponsible move. This is a dangerous move, okay? It's causing teenagers and young adults to have body dysmorphia issues, okay? Yesterday, some guy messaged me saying this: "Hey Alex, I have a feeling that I'm gaining too much weight. I have a 31-inch waist. How do I lose weight?" And when he said that to me, I was like, fucking 31-inch waist and you want to lose some weight? What's going on here? So I believe that these people online, they're saying such ridiculous things. You can't tell someone that it's safe to be sub 10% body fat. And that's fucking irresponsible on the person's part to say that shit. You don't tell someone that. When you're sub 10% body fat, there's a lot of dangerous issues that could come up. There's only a few people in the world that can handle that. Okay? Number 1, you're going to have erectile dysfunction. Number 2, your blood pressure is going to be all fucked up. Number 3, your endocrine system's not going to be working functionally. And number 4, you're going to have extreme fatigue. And number 5, you're going to look flat. So there's a lot of negative consequences. There's no benefits to being super, super lean when you're drug free, okay? And you know, I have some guys that, you've seen my abs, right? People say that I'm fat. I got people telling me I'm fat. Only the guys in the fitness world. Only the guys on the internet. I'm a fat dude, apparently, you know? Apparently, the 10 to 15% range is fat, you know, which is just beyond me. So the point of this video is this, guys. If you're not clinically overweight, meaning 20% body fat or above, why the fuck are you cutting? Why are you trying to get shredded, man? It's not going to do any good for you. It's only going to screw you up. It's only going to destroy your endocrine system. I've noticed that since I've started gaining some more weight, and it kind of shows in my midsection, I feel a lot better. I have more energy. You know, I fit clothes better. My endocrine system is better. My sex drive is better. Everything's better. And I think even I'm growing more fucking facial hair, for goddamn. You know? It's not good to be lean. It's not good to be lean. Anyone who tells you that it's safe to be sub 10% body fat while drug free, they're a lying cocksucker. Okay? I don't care who the person is. Even if they're friends of mine. That's an irresponsible move. You don't tell young kids that it's safe to do that shit. And I'll be the voice here. I'll take responsibility. I'll tell you guys right now, go see a doctor. You tell me if the doctor agrees with these fitness guru motherfuckers saying it's okay to be sub 10% body fat. You tell them. You talk to a doctor. I'm not a doctor, but I can sure as hell guarantee you that it ain't healthy. So that's it, guys. It ain't healthy being sub 10% body fat. I don't want to hear any of you guys telling me that you want to cut when you got a 31-inch waist. That shit breaks my heart.
So you can hear that guy talk in the video that we played, that being lean, losing, you know, body fat in the 10% or let's say 9% and below range is very, very dangerous, because as much as a lot of us, you know, try to get fat or get rid of the fat in our body, fat is necessary for your survival, because all the hormones, like he talked about the endocrine system. When he's talking about the endocrine system, he's talking about your, is it pituitary gland, your thyroid or whatever. It's all based on the fat that you have. If you don't have enough of it, you're going to get sick. So he talked about all the problems you have from erectile dysfunction. You're going to have less energy and all that. That's all tied to the protein that you're eating, because once you're consuming less of it, this is what you're going to get. The result is very, very hazardous. So now let's make you understand the correlation of how important, you know, the fat is in our body, the fats that we eat, and how our bodies process fat and all that, how important it is, because this is something that you do not get, because the very first thing that a baby gets when he or she comes into this world is fat and protein. Why the fat? Because without fat you can't have hormones. So if a lot of issues that a lot of people go through, especially women, reproductive issues, is because they do not have enough quality fat in their bodies. Quality fat in the sense that without getting quality fat, you're not going to have enough hormones, your reproductive organs are not going to function properly, and same with the males. And you have too much of it, which a lot of people will get when they are obese and overweight. That means the level of fat is much more than the level of protein that they have in their bodies. Then they also have problems. So let's look at the correlation between fat and our hormones for you to understand that it's very, very important that you need to eat meat, all right, to get that fat and protein that you need. Then by the end of this particular discussion, then we'll talk about how you should consume that meat and what quantity you should, so you should be healthy. So let's do that. So let's examine how important fat is to our bodies, and we're going to start with the first place, because as children or babies born into this world, we all feed off breast milk. So let's see how important and what's the quantity of fat inside breast milk, because when a child gets born into this world, there are only two things that he or she needs to survive. It's fat and protein. So from this particular website, you can pause the video at any point in time, copy out that link. It says, why the high amount of fat in breast milk is so good for your baby, as you can read here. It says here, breast milk contains all of the essential nutrients, antibodies, and protein your baby needs. Research reveals that a mom's diet does not affect the average amount of fat of calories in milk, which is around 22 calories per feed. So it says here that's the total number of calories per feed from fat. But let's look at the actual amount. So let's see the actual amount in grams or kilograms of breast milk, or of fat that we have in breast milk. Let's find that out first. So according to the search engine in Google, we have 11 grams of fat in 1 cup of breast milk. So fat is almost like, let's say, 11% of the total quantity of breast milk. And so let's see how important the fat is, because we're trying to make you understand the relation between, when you're eating meat, when you're getting fat and getting protein, and how important it is that you get fat, because plant protein cannot give you enough protein or fat. So let's see that. So still reading from that website, you can pause the video at any point in time, copy out the link. It says, unlike other mammals who have infants that are fully formed, cows can walk as soon as they're born. Human babies have a lot of developing to do in a small amount of time. Human breast milk doubles the weight of a baby in just 5 months. And the fat inside a mom's breast is great for the nervous system. So that means a whole entire nervous system. So for example, when you get in the gym and you work out, you start noticing that your body gets very warm. When your body gets warm, it starts burning off the fat, and that fat releases hormones. So you probably hear this all the time, that it releases some sort of is it endorphins or endorphins into your body that makes you feel good. So this is what happens because you have fat. Now imagine you don't have any fat in your body and you're working out. What do you think is going to happen? So let's find out. Let's just read how our hormones, because we already showed you before that our hormones are directly linked to fat. All right. Let's just see some of the hormones that we have, which is necessary and dependent on the fat that we have in our body. So here's an article. You can pause the video at any point in time, copy out that link and go read up on it. It says here, scientists are reporting new evidence that the fat tissue in those spare tires and lower belly pooches, far from being a dormant storage depot for surplus calories, is an active organ that sends chemical signals to other parts of the body, perhaps increasing the risk of heart attacks, cancer, and other diseases. They are reporting discovery of 20 new hormones and other substances not previously known to be secreted into the blood by by human fat cells and verification that fat secretes dozens of hormones and other chemical messengers. Their study appears in ACS Monthly Journal of Proteome Research. So you can pause the video at any point in time. So as long as a lot of people hate fat and say, that fat is bad, it's because of the way we consume the fat. That's the problem, because like I've said before, the Vatican is very, very involved in poisoning our food, water, and everything else around us to make us as a weaker society so that we can be managed and we can be controlled by the elite right now, who happens to be the albino Vatican in power. So, but fat is good for you. So anybody who's trying to dissuade you from the fact that you shouldn't be consuming meat, which is a #1 source for getting fat and proteins from, is actually trying to kill you. And that's what the Vatican is trying to do. It's trying to kill you or make you very weak so that you cannot stand up to them. So let's read up and see a lot of the stuff that how fat affects people, especially because, like I talked about it before, that if you're a woman, you need more fat than a man, because otherwise you're not going to survive. You're not going to function very properly. So let's see how that fat affects women, and then we could come back and look at some of these things, or some of the pesticides and the drugs and vaccines that the Vatican deliberately puts into these animals that we do eat, and causes us to have more than the required number of hormones in our body, because every fat in the animal body, whenever it takes a vaccine or any other thing that you're giving to it, it gets stored and deposited in the fat cells, and it doesn't go away. All right. So, for example, when we get vaccinated for certain diseases or inoculations, it gets stored in our fat cells and remains there almost forever, unless maybe we somehow burn it all off, which is almost impossible. Then those hormones will always stay in the fat cells, because as if you read here, they have it's not a discovery, because they know all this, that fat tissue is not just a storage for surplus calories, as we've been made to believe that when you're fat, that means excess fat just means excess energy. There is something more ongoing there. All right, it's a lot of hormones that get released from our fat cells into our bodies, which are beneficial to our health. So let's read up and see how that fat is directly related to hormones, especially in females. And then from then on, we'll take a good look at those practices that's caused by the Vatican, that's making animal products, which we get a major source of, which is the major source rather of getting our protein and fat, to be so contaminated that we have more than enough and makes our body to go into overdrive working, because of the surplus amount of hormones that we have from those animals that we eat. So let's read up that first, and then we can continue. So I'm reading something from a website here. You can pause the video at any point in time, copy out this link, and go read up. I'm just going to read something very short, then we'll go back and we'll go up and read something else. It says, a study reports the links between excess weight and higher hormone levels. The study found that estrogen and testosterone levels dropped quite a bit when overweight and obese women lost weight. So I want you guys, don't be confused about the article, because the article is trying to, the best way I can put it is this. A lot of people have a lot of ideas of what it means to be overweight. I don't really think there's any problem at all with anybody being overweight, because as we get older, we're always going to carry on more weight, and in the normal body, as we get older, our bones are supposed to get stronger as well. So it should be able to handle that weight. So being overweight is not really a problem. Now, being obese is another issue entirely. Now, being obese means that the best way I can put it is that you're carrying more weight than your body should be able to naturally carry. So that means, for me, being obese, depending on your height, I don't think anybody should be above 250 pounds. Depending on the height. So if you're up to 250 pounds and you're not tall enough, or you're even tall, then that means you might be obese, depending on how tall you are. So for me, 250 is like too much. When you get to like 300 pounds, you're definitely obese. So what we should stick to here when reading this is that you have to understand that your fat is very, very good for your endocrine system, that means your hormonal system if you're going to be functioning properly. So for example, you find out that people who are very, very skinny are very, very irritated. I mean, they're irritated by a lot of things. People who are very, very skinny, because when you do not have enough fat, a lot of those hormones that you need for your body is out of whack. You become irritated by a lot of things, you get angry, you get pissed. It's all because of a lack of fat, because you're not eating enough meat or eating enough food to get the fat and protein that your body naturally needs. So that's one of those things. And now I'm talking about, when I talk about very skinny people here, I'm talking about unhealthy looking people. That means their body fat percentage is lower than 10% body fat, which is required for you to function normally. So below 10%, you're going to be having problems. You know, you're going to be irritated by a lot of things. You're going to be fatigued, no energy, and so many other things that are not very, very good for your health. So that's all I want you to get from this particular web page here that I'm reading this stuff from. So I'm going to read some few more other things before we can see how the direct vaccination of animals and the vaccination against or maybe the feeding of animals certain kinds of food and pesticides, which we believe that there are so many other things involved, because the Vatican doesn't let us know everything that they're doing to these animals, is bringing in so many extra other hormones that the body doesn't need. And because of how we consume the meat, the quantity, and also how we eat it, it now affects us, which we're going to tell you in a couple of minutes how you should eat your meat, because you do require to eat meat if you want to be strong and healthy. Being vegan will not solve that problem. But before I do that, let's just read one thing about, so you can see the differences between how people who eat meat get their fat and more healthy, and people who are vegan are not, before we can continue on to read about the many practices that the Vatican brings into our meat, which is causing it to be unsafe and very healthy, and which we have a byproduct, or let's say a bypass that we can go through to still consume the meat, and it will still be good for us. So let's read that first. So you can pause the video at any point in time and copy out this link here, because I'm reading from this particular website. I keep on reading from the website. It says fat and hormonal effects. Several of the most common forms of cancer are linked to sex hormones. Thus, is true of cancers of the breast, uterus, ovary, prostate, and perhaps other sites. So you can see that all this consumption, because the meat is poisoned by so many things that the Vatican says it's safe for us. Because when I talk about the Vatican, you have to understand that your government is the Vatican, all right? The Vatican, or the government rather, works for the Vatican. So anything that they say, the FDA, it's government approved, it's all approved by the Vatican before it gets down to your constituents, all right? It says here, several of the most common forms of cancer are linked to sex hormones. This is true of cancers of the breast, uterus, ovary, prostate, and perhaps other sites. The amount of hormones in our bodies and their actions are determined in large part by the foods we eat. Now, here's how they get confusing, so that you do not know where the problem comes from. Because they should have just told you it's from the meat we eat, okay? They say foods because the Vatican is very sneaky. So it says fatty foods affect the body in many ways and have a strong influence on hormonal activity in the body. Because there's one thing I have to let you know. No matter the amount of, let's say, vegetarian food that you eat, okay, it's not going to have any... The greater amount of hormones doesn't come from the food. That means I'm talking about like your vegetables, your daily food. It always comes from the meat. Most importantly, they can affect the plants as much as they can, but it is where it lies. All our problem lies in the meat and how we consume it and how much we consume it. So that's just one thing I want you to let you know first. So let's keep on reading. It says fatty foods affect the body in many ways and have a strong influence on hormonal activity in the body. First, high-fat diets increase the amount of estrogens, the female sex hormones, in the blood. It is known that many breast tumors are fueled by estrogens. Estrogens are normal and essential hormones for both women and men, but the more estrogen there is, the greater the driving force behind some of the kinds of breast cancer. On high-fat diets, estrogen levels increase. When women adopt low-fat diets, their estrogen levels drop noticeably in very short time. Vegetarians have significantly lower estrogen levels than non-vegetarians, in part because of the lower fat content of their diet. But that's trying to make you feel like, you know, if you're vegetarian, that you're at the that you're healthier. than someone who's not. This is a whole lot of disinformation here. All what you have to get from this is this: the fat is directly linked to your hormones. All right, the more fat you consume because you're eating meat and not eating it the right way and the right quantity, you're going to be injecting a lot of hormones into your body, which is going to affect you adversely. So the more closer you can get, all right, to what we call what they say organic meat, the best way you can, the closer you get to organic meat, the healthier it is for you. The reason why the meat has become a problem is because it's not organic. They're injecting hormones into the poultry or into the cattle so that it can grow quickly and normal. So for example, let's say it takes maybe it takes you maybe 1 year at the most to get a mature cattle that you can eat, or maybe let's say cow, goat, pig, or whatever form of meat or beef that you eat. When these guys take these animals, they inject them with so much growth hormones so the animal comes to maturity under 3 years. But because they are forcing this animal to grow at a natural pace, it's also stacking up unnatural kind of hormones from what we are giving it to eat. So when we consume this, we consume a lot of problems into our body. So if the animal was to grow at the natural pace, organically too, that means free of all the human growth hormones, free of this vaccination and crazy pesticides and whatsoever, the animal would not give us the over excessive hormones that we have now through how we consume the meat. So that's why I want you guys to take notice of and remember. So let's show you what the FDA does and what is required for animal husbandry, because the reason why the Vatican is from the devil itself is because they have their hands in everything. If you were trying to keep your own animals on your own farm, you would be subject to the city laws. So that's why I started this video by saying that if Donald Trump really wants to give you a tax cut, the best thing he should do in all reality and truth is try to say that they are going to give money to people or try to give assistance for people to get their own property, landed property, and make sure that they are void of the crazy state laws and city laws in your county. All right, that's what they would do, or they would reduce the rent, because since their hands are in everything, you can't even grow your own animals and crops naturally as you would want it to be. Because once the city or state knows that you have a small farm or you're growing something, they become involved in it. And from then the vaccines come in. From then the human growth hormones or whatever form of law they can read to you to say that it makes the meat safe and keeps you safe from other people or keeps the meat safe from other people, then they're going to mess up your own meat. And then you will still have all these problems as the general population has with the meat that's grown by the Vatican for us. So let's take a look at some of those vaccinations that they say that you require for your poultry and meat, and then we can come back and let you know why the meat's bothering you and how you should eat the meat, the quantity that you should eat the meat, so that it does not become a problem to you. So let's get into that. So you can pause the video at any point in time and copy out this link right here. It's a website about the FDA and what the FDA regulates when it comes to animals. So as we're reading here, it says animal products FDA regulates. It says the Food and Drug Administration is responsible for regulating animal drugs, feeds, foods, devices, and most animal health products. However, some classes of animal products come under the jurisdiction of other federal or state government agencies. This is a quick guide to clarify which agency has responsibility for these products. When you read all of these things, I just want you to understand that in one word, it just means what the Vatican regulates. So it says here the FDA regulates pesticides, veterinary biologics, including vaccines, pet foods, animal medical devices, animal grooming aids, responsibility for illegal residues in meat, fish, milk, and eggs. So everything that has to do with your protein intake, the Vatican has a hand in it. So if you have the time, you can come read up all of this and copy it out and go read up on yourself and see what's going on. But let's talk about the hormones that come inside the meat, which are used for, like, you know, your poultry, your beef, cattle, cow, goats, sheep, or whatsoever you eat as beef, and for any other thing. So this website here talks about hormones in animal production. You could pause the link at any point in time, copy out this link right here. Oh, sorry, pause the video at any point in time, copy out that link, and go read up on it yourself. It says here, hormone preparations used in animal production. Hormones of endogenous origin. It says this comprise the classical steroid sex hormones. So that means they give these animals that you eat every day steroids. And what do steroids do? Steroids make the animals get bigger. Just like any bodybuilder would take steroids to get bigger and have more muscle. And you have to understand that the muscle comes from the synthesis of protein into your body is the same thing that's going on with animals. So that's why the animals get so quickly so big. And all this has a side effect on the number of hormones that the animal is producing and that we are also consuming from that. So it says here, this compromises the classical steroid sex hormones, estradiol, 17B testosterone, progesterone. The two former are used either in the free form as esters, many doses of propionic or benzoic acid. Esterification generally causes prolongation of the half-life of the compounds in the body up to 40 to 50%. The natural hormones having low bioavailability when administered orally owing to rapid conjugation and metabolic transformation in the liver. They are therefore administered by subcutaneous implantation. So you can see how these animals are storing up so much hormones. And you have a problem because one thing that we've come to understand is that if you're in bodybuilding, that's why I love bodybuilding as a science, and technically I am a bodybuilder speaking. So what happens is this: when a bodybuilder takes steroids, you find out that so many organs in the body start growing out of proportion, and over time this becomes very dangerous to your health, because you can increase how big your heart is, the lower intestines, and anything that you have inside your stomach, and so many other parts of the body to grow abnormally, which becomes a problem later on, because your body or your organs are going to be working overtime to maintain whatsoever you gave into it. So at the end of the day, the organs might, die out because they've been overworked. So it's the same thing that's happening to us when we consume meats. We are taking in excess hormones that our bodies don't need. So our bodies are always in overdrive. And when your body is always in overdrive, that means you're going to wear out soon. The lifespan is cut short. You're going to have so many problems like, let's say, immunity problems. You're going to have, the health-related issues are too numerous to count at this point. But this is what they're giving to the animals. And then these animals are passing those hormones. So all this that is talking about, all this, benzoic acid, testosterone, progesterone is passed on to us, because when we consume the meat, all right, we consume all of that, and a lot of us consume it in excess. So it's not really about the quantity of meat that you eat per se, but it's more about the quality as well. All right. So because we have so much hormones in the meat, you do not have to eat a lot of it. All right. You just have to eat an amount that's very, very okay for your body to handle, because if you keep on increasing the number of meat that you eat, or the quantity of meat that you eat, it's going to become a problem, because you're packing on so much hormones and making your body work in overdrive. That's why a lot of us have never been in bodybuilding, but we grow big as bodybuilders who are in their off season. Okay, so let's read on again and see some of the other hormones that we find in the meat. It says of the estrogens, hormones of exogenous origin. All right, it says of the oestrogens, the still being derivatives diphysyllibosterol, I don't know how to pronounce that right here, and hexoestrol possess high biological activity and have been used most widely. They're active orally as well as by implantation. Other Orally active estrogens include ethinyl or estradiol, a more slowly metabolized derivative of the true hormone with higher activity. And oestrogen with an entirely different structure is zeranol, a derivative of resorcyclic acid, lactone occurring in the fungus Gibberella zeae. So that means they feed these animals some fungi. Now, according to a very good friend of mine, he said that all the viruses, that there's no such thing as viruses, there's no such thing as bacteria, but that every disease that we have is some sort of fungi growing in our body, causing us to have an abnormal pH balance. So from what we're reading here, we're starting to see those truths come out, all right? As you can see right here, it says a derivative of recyclic acid, lactone, occurring in the fungus Gibberella zeae. So that means a lot of the diseases that we have is fungal, and it also comes from the meat. So let's keep on reading. It says the synthetic androgens comprise a large number of substances, most of which are steroids. Of this, trenbolone acetate possesses strong anabolic properties and has received much attention during recent years, used alone or in combination with oestrogen. Another anabolic steroid is methyl testosterone. Synthetic gestagens, only one will be mentioned here, melengestrol acetate, which stimulates growth in heifers but not in steers, and which can also be used for the suppression of oestrus. Numerous other gestogens also exist, but at present few other than progesterone and melengestrol acetate are used to stimulate growth. So let's read the range of application here so we can really understand what's going on here. In cattle, the use of hormones is limited to veal calves and beef cattle. Veal calves are produced mainly in continental Europe to an extent of about 8 million per year. Research has demonstrated that hormone treatment improves growth rate, nitrogen retention, and FCE during the 5 to 6 week period before slaughter. So, wow, I never even knew that. So that means all these cows that we're eating have a 5 to 6 week period before slaughter. I mean, how old do they get before they get slaughtered? That's the question we need to find out. So let's keep on reading. It says beef cattle, including steers as well as heifers, were treated in large numbers, especially in the US and the UK, with DES or hexoestrolol administered orally until the use of these compounds was restricted. During the last several years, practice has changed dramatically in the direction of increased use of implants of natural steroids, synthetic anabolic steroids, and phytoestrogen zeranol. So you can read, you can scroll down here. Please pause the video at any point in time and copy out that link. It's very, very important that you do that. If you do not copy out any other link, you need to copy out this link and go read up on it so you can see what goes into the animals that we need, and it's feeding us extra hormones that are making our bodies work in overtime. So now is here we answer the question of how do we eat the beef, okay? How do we eat the meat? Especially because as we've come to find out that a lot of the hormones that we have in our food come from the meat that we eat, as we can see here, calves, sheep, poultry, whatever, pigs, as you can see here, and every other thing, other kind of meat that is the main staple in most of the countries around the world, including the United States. So how do we consume the meat? So I'm going to tell you guys a quick story about how we found out about meat and how it's supposed to be consumed. When I for particular, while growing up with my parents, found out that the story is much more related to me because I can't really say for my siblings and everybody else. I found out that when I used to have boils, like, you know, my skin would break out from a night before or a night after I ate meat, but we never knew that was the case. We just knew that, you know, I would eat meat, maybe especially not poultry, but it's specifically coming from beef meat, okay? That anytime I ate the meat, I would break out, but we did not know that. It's just after a while that, you know, my parents decided just to find out what was the reason why I was breaking out in particular. So what they found out was this. When we had beef that was organic, that means beef that we trusted was grown naturally, man. That means the meat went through the natural rate of growth that, let's say, cattle or cow should go through before it's being slaughtered and made into meat, that we didn't have any problems. But when we had any type of meat that we got from a store, we found out that I would break out. So that's the one thing we found out. So our parents decided to think, okay, what's the best way we can consume, this particular beef? Because we don't always have, we probably have had to wait like maybe, let's say, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, because before we could get the organic grown meat, which we'll be sure of, which was slaughtered by the person who grew it, and we would take it back home and put it in the fridge and freeze it out for, and it would last us maybe for like 7, 8, 9 months before we would go back to get another meat. But if we ran out of meat by then we had to go to the store. So we found out that every time we ate that meat, I in particular would break out with, some kind of boils over my skin. So my parents started thinking about what should we do. So we did find out that when we had the organic grown meat, we naturally would just, cut, wash the meat and cook. The oil that came out from the meat was very, very minimal. And then when we cooked the meat that we got from the store, from any of your stores, you can mention it through whether it's Walmart or wherever you get your meat from, Stater Bros or wherever it is in the United States. And I don't know for anybody else watching outside of the country where they get their meat from. You find out that when you boil this meat that you got from the store, the fat content that came out of it was very, very much. It was foaming. It would be foaming, the meat would be foaming, but for the organic meat, the meat that we knew was grown natural. That means the cow grew under the normal duration of time that maybe a cow should grow. It had less of that foaming. So we noticed that. So my mom came up and said, okay, we have an idea. So when we boil this meat, all right, let's drain it out. Let's drain out all the foaming that comes from it. So we took it upon ourselves every time we brought the meat back home from any store that wasn't organic. Then we would boil it, put it in a pot, and when it steams and it just boils, not boiling for a very long time, when that first steam comes out from maybe the first 2 minutes or so that it's boiling over, you would drain the water out. When you drain the water out again, you could put it back in the pot, boil it one more time, and then drain the water out. And then when we prepare the meat and ate it, I wouldn't be breaking out the next morning. Okay? So, the best way to eat meat, if you know that, because you have to eat meat to survive, even though it's poisoned and there is hormones that you have to eat it to survive. So that's the best way you can do it. So when you bring back any meat from home, boil it first and drain out that water, the first water that's foaming and everything, drain it out. You will see there's a lot of fat content inside your pot. You can do it twice. If you don't want the meat to be too tender, then one time could be enough for you, and that's okay. And then you could prepare the meat and season it with anything you want to do and then make it to eat. Another way that we found out that meat could be consumed and the fat contents would be very less, so that we don't have all these excess hormones in our body, is by grilling the meat. So if you grill the meat or grill the meat in any way, shape, or form, the oil content is going to be less because the oil is going to drain out, like the fat content from that meat is going to be drained out, and a lot of those excess hormones, instead of you consuming it, is going to be drained out of the meat. So I've given you 2 ways to do it. Boil the meat first and drain out all the water, the first water that foams and comes out from it, and then prepare your meat and eat. Or you grill it. You grill it and make sure that you grill it in such a way that all the oil drains out, all the fat contents, most of the fat contents drains out from the meat, and then it's safe for consumption. So those are the 2 ways you can eat the meat that you get from the store safely without having any problems, instead of avoiding it. So another thing is the quantity that you should eat. So since quantity is a bit of a problem, and a lot of people might have a problem getting into it and know how much quantity you should eat, the best rule of thumb is this. Let's say eat beef every 3 days. So that means if you had some beef today, and today happens to be I think today's Thursday, okay? The next time you're gonna have meat is gonna be Sunday. So that's the best way you can check the quantity that you're eating, instead of eating every day. So if you had it today, the next time you should eat it should be 3 days after, should be Sunday. So that way you're not consuming meat every day, and you're giving yourself or giving your body enough time for it to remove, maybe handle any excess hormones that you have from the beef that you ate earlier the day before, and also to check out the quantity so that you're not eating too much because you're eating every single day. So those are the best two ways that you can eat meat instead of avoiding it altogether. I hope you guys learned something from watching all of this, because this video is dedicated to saving lives, and I want people to understand that going vegan is not the way to go. You're gonna die quickly. The whole idea of this vegan lie and propaganda that's being spread around is because the Vatican wants you to believe in the concept of global warming, and it wants you also weak, because they know once you go vegan, you're gonna become weaker. You can't stand, you won't have the energy to talk. Like all the things that we talked about that you should go if Donald Trump wants to really reduce your tax cut, because it's all lies and everything else. And when you go to your town hall meetings, you don't know how to address the issues, because you go around talking about the things they want you to talk about instead of talking about the truth. The right thing to do would be to halve your rent, all right, and remove those crazy, state laws from property. And then that way you can be genuinely okay if they really want to help the middle class. So we're going to switch gears now, and that's what I wanted to share with you guys, so that you guys can understand that being vegan is not the way to go. Don't let anybody lie to you about any ketogenic diet or going vegan is going to help you be healthy. It's only going to help you get sick, and much more sick, because as we've shown you from the Bible, we've shown you physically with people who have tried it out, and they've told you the truth about it, that going vegan is not the way to go, because you do not have enough protein, you don't get enough fat, which is necessary for your health and well-being. So we're going to switch gears now and get into the transvestigation of Billy Graham and Post Malone, so we can wrap up this video. I'm sorry it was a long video, but I have to tell you the truth. So like we said, with every video that we have on this channel, please download, re-upload, share with somebody so you guys can know the truth, and do the study and research for yourself as well. So let's get into the transvestigation of Billy Graham and Post Malone so we can wrap up this video, this long video. Sorry about it for being a long video. Let's go. So here is Billy Graham with Pope John Paul, but you can see as the way he sits right here, or she sits, because he's rather she. There's an arch in that back right here, because Billy Graham is 100% female. We have more pictures, and this is one of the greatest, I don't know what the name I should give these people, the most evil of all evil leadership, Pope John Paul right there of the Vatican. So as I always tell you, the Vatican is the one running the whole entire Christian religion in the earth. It's as simple as that. And I've told you guys before, when you get a book, you get that more understanding. The synagogue of Satan that the Bible talks about, that Yehoshua talked about in the book of Revelations, is talking about the church. That so-called church that you go to every Sunday or any other day and sit down and listen. It doesn't matter what name it is. It doesn't matter if it's called the Seventh-day Adventist, the Latter-day I don't know, whatever name, Jehovah's Witness, a Protestant church, whatever name it comes with. The synagogue of Satan. Because you have to remember, when Yehoshua talked about it, he didn't just say synagogue. He said synagogue of Satan. That means it's one word. Because he wasn't just referring to a synagogue. He said synagogue of Satan. Well, when you get a book, you get firm understanding of that. But let's move further, because we don't have no time anymore. We have to go through this fast. It's a very long video. You can see right here that Billy Graham starts spreading from underneath his elbows, and this Q angle is below the crotch. As you can see, he has an hourglass figure, because Billy Graham is 100% female and not a man in any way, shape, or form. Been lying and ridiculing us for a very long time that he was leading us to God when he was leading us to the Pope and the Vatican. Let's go. Another picture of Billy Graham right here when he was much younger. You can see the curves on those hips right there, because Billy Graham is 100% female. And this could be his so-called handlers or so, because they look like they were ones handling this young feminine figure in Billy Graham. You can see the Q angle is below the crotch, because Billy Graham is 100% female and not a man in any way, shape, or form. Billy Graham here again. I don't know who. I don't know if this is a president of the United States or so, but we don't care about that for now. All we're looking at is the Q angle right here, which is below the crotch, because Billy Graham is 100% female, as you can tell. Now, the way he's putting his hands there don't fit, because that's not the male waist. That's the female pelvis that he's putting her hands on, and you can tell from that face, that very feminine face, that he has no iota of masculinity in him, because he's 100% female, not a man in any way, shape, or form. Let's go with another picture. We're going to show this picture. We already show you this, but let's try to see if we can blow this up so you can see very clearly that Billy Graham is spreading from underneath the elbows and has curves like a female does right there, as you can tell, because Billy Graham is 100% female and not a man in any way, shape, or form. And there's an arch in that back for Billy Graham. Billy Graham here, clear as night and day. If we didn't have any other picture to show you and we wanted to end the video right here, this would suffice. As you can see right here, the acute Q angle below the crotch, as you can see how wide, right, from the elbows that he starts spreading. You can see how curvy these hips are, and this Q angle is below the crotch, because Billy Graham is 100% female. He's been lying to the world for a very long time that he was doing the work of God, when he was actually doing the work of the Vatican, as we showed from the very first picture, him with Pope John Paul, who died. Wicked entities running our world. Let's go another picture right here, and this Billy Graham in his old age. As you can see, that pubic arch right there is way too wide, because this is 100% female, and all these people right here are telling you lies. If you've ever been to a Billy Graham concert and you thought you met God, I'm sorry to say you met the devil. You've been listening to the devil for a very long time. And remember, the Bible says that Satan masquerades as an angel of light, masquerades around. He's not the angel of light, but masquerades around as one, because Billy Graham here was doing his work, because Billy Graham is 100% female and not a man in any way, shape, or form. As you can tell, that's the face of an old albino or white lady, as you guys would say it. Let's keep going. This Billy Graham with George Bush. We have George Bush in the book. It's very interesting read for you guys to read up with something about George Bush. When you get the book, you'll get all that information, but we just want to show you that Billy Graham, he is spreading from underneath the elbows and has an hourglass figure, because all this is the pelvic region of a female, and they called him American's pastor. He was actually American's liar, just like John Hagee is now. 100% female in Billy Graham right here. All right, I already showed you that picture. Here's Billy Graham again in one of those crusades. As you can see, this is a woman standing right here with a very curvaceous figure. All right, acute Q angle below the crotch, because Billy Graham is 100% female. I'm sorry that the picture is not very clear, it's blurry, but you can still tell that you're looking at a female right there. Let's go another picture of Billy Graham here. Acute Q angle is below the crotch, hourglass figure, trying to lie to us that he's running like a man when it's actually a female running. Acute Q angle. And here's one thing I've just found out with a lot of the pictures that we find online. The Vatican is very sneaky. I think before we started this channel, we didn't have any like pictures online which would say that it's subject to copyright issues, but immediately we started making videos, all the pictures now online that you find are subject to copyright issues, because they want to hide stuff. Alright, so they use all these stupid laws, phony laws that they use to hide stuff, to say that it's copyright issues, so you can't use these pictures publicly to show that Billy Graham, like here, right now, is 100% female, not a man in any way, shape, or form. America's pastor was 100% female. We are so sorry that we had to find this out before he died, but nevertheless, the truth must be told, and the world must know who the stooges of the Vatican are, and then show and point who their masters really are. Let's go. Billy Graham here with Ronald Reagan, you know, in a crusade. And this is how they make... see, the Vatican likes using your emotions and your mind to control you, because there are so many... Christianity has made people weak. They're so weak and stupid. People who... I say that with all emphasis. I don't care what anybody's going to say to me at the end of this video. Christianity has made a lot of people weak and stupid. Stupid in their minds. They just can't think. They're so clouded by emotions instead of looking for the truth. When the very idea of worshiping God is about search for truth. Search for truth. Not to get clouded with your emotions and crazy doctrines which have no meaning at all. This is Billy Graham right here, acute Q angle below the crotch, an hourglass figure. A lot of people won't see this, right? Look at that. Hourglass figure spreading from underneath the elbows. Acute Q angle below the crotch. Because this is 100% female. Was never a man in any way, shape, or form. Well, we have some stories on Ronald Reagan in the book. So when you get the book, you get that. And here is him again, or she again, as we should call him, Billy Graham. As you can see, this acute Q angle, the way he walks, that's how a female walks. Acute Q angle. See that right there? It's below the crotch all the way down, because Billy Graham is 100% female, not a man in any way, shape, or form. Billy Graham again doing the run, trying to make us believe, and that's one thing that you find out with so many of these transgenders, like you will find out in Post Malone. They have the worst sense of fashion ever. They wear all these baggy clothes, and you try, in your mind, you're thinking these are very decent men just trying to, you know, worship God. That's why you can't base your belief in God based on what another man does or not. It's a personal relationship. You can't base how you relate with your dad based on how your siblings relate with your dad or mom. It's a personal relationship just between you and them. But Billy Graham here, as you can see, has an acute Q angle running like a woman because he's 100% female, acute Q angle below the crotch because Billy Graham is 100% female and not a man in any way, shape, or form. As you can see, this long butt, because remember, females always have a longer butt, because from middle inside the torso of the body is the female's waist, so that she can have all the reproductive organs inside the pelvic region, so she can carry a baby to full term. And that's how a woman's butt is longer, because it starts from her waist. Everybody's butt starts from the waist, and a female's butt starts higher up because it's right inside the torso of the body. See, look at that long butt all the way down with this acute Q angle below the crotch, because Billy Graham is 100% female, not a man in any way, shape, or form. And look at this man looking. This must be a handler looking and say, yes, look at that product. A handler from the Vatican probably looking over there. Let's go. Look at Billy Graham. As you can still see, this is how a woman stands when she's carrying a child. You can see how this pelvic tilt is happening here. Pelvic tilt, because Billy Graham is 100% female. You can see this arch in the back and how it curves. Look at that. Look at that arch in the back before it gets to the pelvis. Slanting forward, tilted pelvis. This is how a woman stands when she's carrying a baby. Look at that. And someone says this is a man. Look at the way she cuddles this child, because she's 100% female and not a man in any way, shape, or form, with that pelvic tilt right there. Billy Graham, 100% female and not a man in any way, shape, or form. Let's go. Another picture. Look at that. That's where a female puts her hands on her waist when she's tired, because the navel's right around here, and your arms as a female is going to go to your waist, which is above your navel. So based on this body, the navel is right around here. It can be here. It can be here. It's right around here, because Billy Graham is 100% female with that long butt of a female, as you can see right here. And all this deceive people here, because a lot of people go to church because they like the feeling that they get from the church. Because some of the basic questions you should ask is this: if you've been in church for so long and praying so long and things are not changing, you ought to ask yourself the question, what is going on? Because every day things are getting worse in your country, in your constituent, or wherever you are, and still you say you believe in God. You should ask questions. What kind of a God is he? And find out if you're really praying to the God you think you are. But most people never, ever for a second stop to think about that. Why? Because we are much more interested in the comforts that God can provide instead of the truth. You're supposed to look for truth, not the comforts that he can provide. They've twisted the Christianity into such a way that it makes people to seek for the comforts instead of truth. We weren't supposed to seek for comforts, but truth in everything. Let's go. Another picture. Here's Billy Graham with his so-called... So when you are actually thinking that you're looking at two heterosexual couples preaching the word of God to you, you're actually looking at two homosexuals. And look at this lady, probably his wife, laughing and smiling and making you believe that these are two heterosexual couples. Look at that. But you can see this wide pelvis right here. This wide pelvis, so wide, as you can see right here. Let me see if I can blow this picture up so you guys can see that clearly, how wide the pelvis is, even though it's a dark picture, but you can still see. Look at that. That's a female pelvis. See how wide it gets out from the body? And the Q angle is right here, because the crotch is right around here, and this Q angle starts below the crotch, because Billy Graham is 100% female and not a man in any way, shape, or form. Wasn't any man in any way. Billy Graham again playing golf. You can still see there's a cute Q angle. The baggy pants. You can see that this pelvis is right outside the torso of the body, as in all females do, because with regular females, like we showed before, the hips are always going to be the widest point in the body. As you can see, this narrow shoulders and the hips jutting out here, because Billy Graham is 100% female. Been masquerading around as a man for way too long and got away with it. But we caught him in due time, even though she's dead. Let's go. Another picture, still that same thing. You can see that acute Q angle below the crotch, as you can see right here, because Billy Graham is 100% female. No man's Q angle will be this acute. No man will have this kind of acute Q angle, because Billy Graham is 100% female and not a man in any way, shape, or form. Let's go another picture. Clear. I mean, we should end the video right here and should be done away with, because we can end this right here and go over to Post Malone. Look at that. Look at how wide this hip is jutting out from the body, because Billy Graham is 100% female. Just look at that Q angle. Look at that. And someone's going to tell you that this is a man. They've been lying to you way too long, because Billy Graham is 100% female and not a man in any way, shape, or form. Let's go to another picture of Billy Graham again. As you can still see, the same thing, acute Q angle right there is below the crotch, because this person has been masquerading and deceiving many people for so many years that he's actually a man of God. I do not like that name. No man is a man of God. None. I don't know who, the Bible might say it, but that's it. But in today's world, no man is a man of God. We're all children of the Most High. That's the right way to put it. So don't let anybody lie to you and use that term, man of God, to confuse you. We are all children of the Most High God in Yahweh. And that's what the Bible says. We are all children of the Most High. Nobody should usurp any authority over you. When you get a book, you get to understanding the real ideology behind all those things, so you don't get confused anymore. That's why we advise you that you get the book. It's not our own doing. That is the price that it is. We don't own any printing press. It's what they tell us or what they charge us is what we give back to you. That's all what it is. Let's go. This is another picture of Billy Graham. There's an arch in that back, swinging a golf ball and trying to pretend to us that he's actually a man when he's not. This acute Q angle is below the crotch, because Billy Graham is 100% female. Arch in the back right there with a tilted pelvis forward, as all females have, because they need to carry children. Billy Graham, 100% female, a stooge of the Vatican. Billy Graham again right here. As you can see what I'm telling you guys? Can you see what I'm telling you guys right here? Look at how wide these hips spread out from the body. Look at that. And look at this hourglass figure right here. Narrow shoulders, wider hips. If you draw a line from this hips up, you can see it's wider than that shoulders right up here, because Billy Graham is 100% female. Let me blow this up so you guys can see it very clearly. Come on, blow up, blow up, blow up. You can see that. Look at that. Look at that. Hips spreading outside the body. Narrow shoulders, because Billy Graham, 100% female. And all these people, liars around him right here, selling you the idea that you've been looking at a man all along, when he's been masquerading as a female for way too long, and he's very, very successful at it and died without a lot of people knowing. Let's go. Billy Graham, and again, as we can see right there, that doesn't look like there's any scrotum. It looks like a labia, because Billy Graham is 100% female. 100% female, not a man in any way, shape, or form. Billy Graham again, I think we already showed you this older picture, but you can still see this acute Q angle below the crotch, because Billy Graham is 100% female. Even when putting her hands in her pocket and trying to hide those hips, it doesn't really help, because she is 100% female. Look, even right now we can use the secondary characteristics. Look at the length of the arm right here. Look at how small the hands are. Look at the length of the arm. Very short arms. Compared to the man that's on the right, we can just judge just by the length of the man's arm that is a man. Very long arms. You can see Billy Graham is taller. This man is shorter, but longer arms. Billy Graham taller, but shorter arms, because Billy Graham is 100% female, not a man in any way, shape, or form. Billy Graham again, acute Q angle below the crotch, because Billy Graham is 100% female, not a man in any way, shape, or form. Billy Graham again, as you can see right there, acute Q angle below the crotch. And this is how they make us believe that Africans are suffering, because black people in general and Africans, and they're always in Africa trying to sell us an idea that they're helping Africans. If you're an African, I have to let you know right now that no white elite, when I'm not talking about white people, I'm talking about the elite, the people who come as the elite, are in any way trying to help you. They're trying to kill and slaughter you so they can reduce your population, so you don't outbreed them and become the people that you once were, which were the people that was running this world. That's all what it is, because we're all black. They have no help for you. If you see all of those crazy elites coming, right, The crazy white elites, the Bill Gates, like Billy Graham, and so on and so forth, you should tell them you don't want them in your country because they have no good intentions for you. So know that, please. Let's go further, and we finished with Billy Graham. We're on to now Post Malone. As you can see, Post Malone is very, very curvaceous. That's the reason why he has all these crazy tattoos and dress codes and bad fashion to distract you from the fact that you're looking at a woman. That's all what they do. The long hair, the tattoos, and all the mannerisms just to hide. And he always, or she always rather looks very high strung on drugs. And I pity the poor kid. I hope somehow that she comes to the reality of what's going on, if they can, and get out of it and tell the whole world the truth, who they really are, because that's the first step. Like I've always said, if you don't have anything, you have a mouth to speak. You may not have millions of dollars, you may have nothing in your pocket, but you have a mouth to speak. As long as you speak, that means you are not part, you do not want to be part of the system, all right, of the slavery that the albinic elite have put us all into. Let's go. Here is the picture that started the whole thing. Here's a Post Malone at Coachella. As you can see, this acute Q angle is below the crotch because Post Malone is 100% female. Now they try to give him some sort of, shoulder padding here to make the shoulders wider, but the shoulders are not wider than his hips. The shoulders are actually narrow. They end right around here. This is all just padding, just to give you the illusion that the shoulders are wider, because these hips are jutting out way too much, because Post Malone is 100% female and not a man in any way, shape, or form. Post Malone, look at that. I want you guys to see clearly, because this is the only one of the best clear pictures that we have of Post Malone. I want you to marinate on it for a while, because you're looking at a female with an acute Q angle below the crotch. Crotch is right here, acute Q angle below it, because Post Malone is 100% female. So a lot of the music that he's singing is probably very, very well. When you get a book, we make you understand that when you transgender someone, or somebody who's mutilating themselves, because that's the right way to put it. When you mutilate a child, or you're an adult and you go through mutilation, you're suffering from an attack on your mind by entities that we cannot even begin to explain. When you get a book, you'll understand that a lot of these people are made to be habitations for certain entities to work on and perform. So that's why, for example, when you hear Post Malone's music, it sounds very hypnotic all of a sudden, and it seems like you just get into the flow with it real quick, because it's not normal. There are entities working to make that music sound that way and make her sound this way, because Post Malone is 100% female, not a man in any way, shape, or form. Let's go Post Malone again. As you can see, there's a cute Q angle below the crotch, and you can start seeing the femininity come out of her, because as we've talked about before in our videos, the way a man acts and the way a female acts is in their genetics. They don't just do things the way they do just because they want to do it that way. It's just the genes, the genetics that speaks for themselves. So that's why when you look at certain people try to act or maybe try to talk a certain way, and after a while you start seeing that the gender that they appear to be in is not the gender that they are operating or how they are acting from. So for example, people like Beyonce and Serena Williams, after a while you start seeing the male tendencies come out, and you see like, oh, that looks very, very mannish, rather, because Beyonce and Serena Williams are actually dudes. They are not females in any way, shape, or form. Same here with Post Malone trying to act like he's actually a man, but it's actually female, because Post Malone is 100% female, not a man in any way, shape, or form. Here's Post Malone. As you can see, we didn't find a lot of good pictures of Post Malone because the Vatican is doing its job to make sure they hide their stooges pretty well, so a lot of people wouldn't know that transgenders or mutilated people, I mean, saying this, it's kind of heavy. It's always heavy on me when I think about it, that they're taking these children right from childhood and making them to be the sex and gender that's different from the sex and gender they were born with. Because Post Malone here is a clear example of what's going on right here in Hollywood and in the world. The organized transgendering of young children by the Vatican. All right? This is what's going on. As you can see, Post Malone has this very ridiculously wide hips. And I pity the poor child, or I would say pity the poor girl, because she looks like someone who's so far strung out in drugs and can die any minute, because he always looks high as a kite all the time. Probably she could be that she knows what she is, and the only way she can handle it is through the drugs, and I pity her. That's why there's no slandering allowed on the channel, because as much as we're exposing this, we are also trying to save lives as well. So Post Malone, as you can see, he has an acute Q angle that's below the crotch, very wide pelvic region, because she's 100% female with an hourglass figure, not a man in any way, shape, or form. Post Malone again here. This is a picture that's very, very small and blurry, because when the Vatican knows that he's going to hide stuff, they make the pictures very blurry. As you can see, the curvaceous hips, acute Q angle below the crotch, because Post Malone is 100% female, not a man in any way, shape, or form. Sorry for the blurry picture. My picture of Post Malone, you can see those are females' thighs and females' hips, very clear as night and day. If you wanna end this video right here, this should suffice. You can see this is all the curves that a female has, you know, because all the testosterone or hormones they're giving it, the body will always fight to be in the gender that it was born with, because the skeletal structure will always say I'm feminine. So that's what's happening here with Post Malone, because she's 100% female, not a man in any way, shape, or form. Here's Post Malone again. You can see that acute Q angle below the crotch, the curvaceous hips right here. This is how a female would raise her legs when she's trying to place one foot in front of her by raising it. And then you can see this acute Q angle just shows because Post Malone is 100% female. The Vatican dressed her up, trying to distract you with all the bad fashion, the tattoos, from looking at the feminine form that Post Malone comes in, because Post Malone is 100% female. Here's Post Malone again. As you can see, Post Malone has an arch in her back right there, as you can tell, because if we draw a line right here, this would divide the body into half, which is where the female waist usually is, because Post Malone is 100% female and not a man in any way, shape, or form. There's an arch in that back. Okay, Post Malone again, clear as night and day. You can see that arch right there showing, because Post Malone is 100% female and not a man in any way, shape, or form. Post Malone again with a very curvy figure of female, because Post Malone is 100% female. Alright, I think we've come to the end of today's video. I'm sorry it was a long video, but we just had to tell you the truth so you don't get stuck in this lies of being a vegan and ketogenic diets and everything else. We're not saying you can't eat all that food, but do not leave your meat out of it. Otherwise, all the goodness that you've gotten from all eating all those green vegetables and green foods is going to go missing. So like we've said, when you get to the poultry farm or you get your beef from your store, because we don't control the production of any of those, boil the meat first and drain out the water from the first boil. Once it just boils, then drain out the water. You can do it 2 times or more, but depending on how tender you want the meat. If you don't want the meat to be too tender, then you have to do it once, because a lot of the hormones that they put in our beef just makes it real soft real quick. And then you can grill it and put it in an oven, and so that all the excess fat drains out, so you can still consume the meat and it'll still be good for you, because you need the meat to survive. So with that, I hope you guys learned something. Please subscribe to the channel, to our second channel called Tricks of the S-Trade 2, in case this channel goes down and we have no way to reach you. And get our book. Send us an email. We'll tell you the price and cost of shipping. We'll ship the book to you anywhere you are in the world. Okay, because you need the book, because we do not know how long the channel is going to be down, or channel is going to be up, and we also do not know if you downloaded the videos and saved it, is it going to be safe for how long on your hard drive, because the Vatican is hard at work trying to make sure that they control all things digitally, so they can shut it down at any point in time. You guys have probably heard of this before. They call it electromagnetic pulse, right? You've probably heard of it from the hoax of like nuclear weapons. Those electromagnetic pulses are very real. They can fry any hard drive at any point in time. And with the Vatican doing so many things, flying planes over your sky, and you see chemtrails and everything else, you do not know if they're saturating the atmosphere and getting ready to release an electromagnetic pulse, which will shut all hard drives down and you will lose all your information. So get our book, because the book, nothing can happen to the book. Please. So with that, we leave you with these words. Look with your eyes, but see with your brains. And I'll talk with you guys later. All right.